ideally, we're in for a pretty exciting day here with this Grenke event, which I'll tell you about. Now I'll introduce it to you. What's going on here? This is round one. Maybe I could even put that in the title. Maybe that would make sense. Put somewhere here that it's round one. Yeah, it's round one. This is going to be a 5-day tournament, 9 rounds, open, classical time controls. So we're looking at 1 game today and 2 games each of the next 4 days thereafter. There's a normal classical open tournament with the normal starting position, which has ratings and titles and norms and all of that in it. And then there is a 960 open or Fisher Random open. Let me call that Fisher Random instead of 960 since that's my preference. Fisher Random open. And the Fisher Random Open is a very rare event, and it is incredibly stacked as far as the field. It seems like a lot of the top players chose to play in this Fisher Random tournament versus the normal chess tournament, although there are GMs in both. So, anyone know the probability of randomly assigning the official chess setup in a Fisher Random roll? Yep, it's 1 out of 960, General Blorp. Far Eastern, you've got an echo on my audio? Huh. There's only one mic on, and I'm not on a phone call with anyone or anything. Why would there be an echo? If somehow I'm listening to the show myself without knowing it? Huh. Okay. Well, Far Eastern, let's hope it's a problem with your computer. Yeah, that variant exists, Melt Like Butter. It's not popular yet, but it exists. I've played it. Thank you, Matt Chess. All right, so let's have a quick look at the participants in each tournament. Let's start with Kostya's tournament. We'll give him first importance and Magnus second importance. So we'll look at Kostya's tournament, and I'll just read out some of the top boards to you. The top seed I see is a Wonder Liang. So 2692 FIDE. I guess if he has a great tournament, he'd have a chance of crossing 2700 for the first time. But of course, that's very hard to do when you're the highest rated player in an event, right? You'd be expected to lose rating points to the lower rateds. Then there's Nikita Vityugov, who has been 2700 before, but is currently at 2670. Ivan Saric has also touched 2700. He's 2659. Alexei Shirov, of course, has been one of the top 3 or 4 players in the world for years. He's now at 2650. That would be probably Kostya's favorite opponent in this tournament. If Kostya got to pick one person to play with, I would predict that he would pick Alexei Shirov. Then we've got a fair crop of 2600 grandmasters here. I mean, Yufa, Injic, Ivic, Donchenko, Safarli, Bartel, Georg, Meyer, Muradli, all very strong. Let's see if Brandon Jacobson is 2600. No, 2570. Muradli also, I think, is slightly under 2600. And yeah. Cool. So, so that, now I have to find Kostya's board again. It didn't save it for me. Okay, we're going to scroll for Kostya again. Andy Woodward is playing here, I see as I'm scrolling. Huge tournament. There's Kostya. All right. Whew. All right, so here's Kostya's board. And then over here, we're going to look at the who's who of the Chess 960 or Fisher Random section. And I think with my setup, sorry, let me grab my setup for a second. It's probably really tiny, but if you wanted to squint, you might be able to read these players' names. Otherwise, just bear with me as I read their names out for you. So the Fisher Random Tournament has Magnus Carlsen as the first seed, Arjun Erigaisi as the second seed, Fabiano Caruana as the third seed. So Nakamura is not playing. Nepo as the fourth seed, Chitambaram as the fifth seed, Mamad Yarov, sixth seed, Wesley So, seventh seed, Levon Aronian, eighth seed, Lanier Dominguez, ninth seed, Hans Niemann, 10th seed, Lei Kwang Liam, 11th seed. These are all still 2700s. Richard Rapport, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave, Vincent Kamer. We're up to 12 players still over 2700. Yu Yang Yi, Sindarov, Esipenko. And Esipenko must be right at 2699 or something, 96. So that is the last of the 2700s. I think that was about 14 of them. So basically, this is the strongest open tournament of the year so far, and so insanely strong that it doesn't seem likely any other tournament would equal it. I mean, even the Grand Swiss to qualify for the FIDE World Championship. And here come the first moves on Kostya's board. Even the Grand Swiss, I don't know if it's as strong as that, because Magnus doesn't play in the Grand Swiss, right? Holy cannoli. I knew it was going to be strong. I knew that Magnus and what's his face, Hans. I knew that Magnus and Hans were going to play. That had been sort of publicized in advance, talked about. But I did not know just how many strong players would turn up. Several of these players basically coming pretty much straight from the Paris Freestyle Grand Slam, you know, so it's not a lot of rest by top player standards. But, oh man, I'm pumped to find out who wins that. You know, who comes out on top. Well, I guess probably Magnus. I guess I'm excited to find out who comes out second. I'm really curious if like Vincent Kamer or Javokir Sindarov could have another good tournament. So they really like freestyle, or they like money without losing rating. They probably like both, don't they, Far Eastern? The people who are here mostly probably like both. Kostya going solid in the first round here, e4, e5. As he told us, after he plays a million nerve-wracking open Sicilians, he sometimes gets this feeling like, and now is the moment where I should play solidly for a game. Then afterwards he regrets it and says, why didn't I just play the Najdorf? Or, you know, the Kalashnikov or the Savashnikov or some other thing. W. Reynolds has a good question, which unfortunately I don't know the answer to, which is, how long before the game starts was the position revealed for the players in this tournament here, right? Basically Magnus and Vincenz, you know, did they see this position 5 minutes before the game started, or 2 minutes before the game started, or half an hour? Yeah, it's a good question, and I don't actually know. In Fisher Random, yeah, the pieces will always be mirrored like this. Magnus kicks it off with g4, opening up his queen, and Black says, I'm going to counter your diagonal with bishop b7. So, of course, Magnus has the bishop. Black can counter with the bishop because the knight's here to defend it. A fianchettoed knight is not considered very good, and there will definitely be weak squares around black's king, which is less of a problem than weak squares around white's queen. So this is a slightly risky decision from black. It also gives a hook for Magnus to throw a4, a5 up the board, perhaps, already, if he wants to. A common theme in Fischer Random that we found is that moving the pawns in front of your rooks can be quite good. And I guess AlphaZero had kind of started to teach us that in normal chess as well, that often, a4 or h4 could be quite good, increasing the scope of your rooks while gaining some space, if you don't need to castle in that area. So when you castle in Fischer Random General Blorp, you end up in the normal castling position, regardless of what positions your king and rooks started in. So kingside castling will always leave your king on g1, rook on f1. And queenside castling will always leave your king on c1, rook on d1. So if Magnus castled queenside, his king would actually move one step towards the kingside. But also, kingside and queenside, it's still under discussion whether or not we should call them kingside or queenside in Fischer Random, right? You see, what you might be used to, experienced players will immediately understand that the kingside is whatever, maybe like F file through H file, right? Because you've been playing so long. But let's say we were talking about this position with a beginner and we told them white's going to castle to the king side. They wouldn't expect you to move the king to g1, right? They would think the king side is the side the king is already on. So we might want to call this the H side and the A side, or something else. I'm not 100% sure what to do about that question or problem. Anyway, Magnus now having a deep think, or he may not be in a tank for 20 minutes, but he's having a real consideration here, right? He's deciding to devote some time to this. So I think he maybe slightly didn't expect this bishop trade to come through. I think he's pretty much going to be obliged to put his bishop on this diagonal. I don't think he wants to, just have his queen trapped in the corner and play f3 or something, right? So I think he pretty clearly is going to do something with this bishop trade, right? But he's probably thinking, how does the bishop trade affect all the other stuff I want to do, right? Do I want to throw in a4, a5, or does that not help me? Do I want to trade on b7? Or is the knight well placed there and I wait for black to maybe take and I take with my queen, right? Because he could also play something like this. Right, just grabbing some space there. So he's got a couple options with that over there. Meanwhile, Kostya's game is probably going to start a little bit faster. So let's look at a few moves from Kostya's game. And actually, it looks like it's immediately going to be an unusual variation as well. Kostya's opponent plays d3 here. And Kostya shows great self-control with knight f6. I would have thought, low-rated opponent playing some passive, pathetic move like d3, I'm going to play the king's gambit with black, right? I'd try to find some way. To get a king's gambit with black here. I might start with bishop c5, d6, like a bishop's opening, and try and play it without sacking the pawn, because, I'm pretty terrified of sacking a pawn. But this kind of a slow move would tempt me so much. That said, I agree with Viral Stigma's claim that the Gleck system is underrated. Yes, the position's equal, but there's no particular downside, and it's not bad. Most other openings are pretty much equal anyway now with supercomputer analysis. And white gets a pretty consistent setup. I haven't showed the last moves yet, folks, but the point of this sort of e4, d3 setup is bishop g2, a Gleck, and basically white's playing a King's Indian attack or King's Indian defense from the get-go with white. I think the really mainline Gleck, so to speak, would be your knight is on c3. If the knight's still on b1 and it goes to d2, maybe we would say it was a King's Indian attack versus a Gleck. But in any case, this is a perfectly reasonable opening that leads to perfectly interesting positions. And it's perhaps been slightly underplayed in the past, back when people thought they could force opening advantages. But I think that you're going to see more and more of these kind of openings being played in classical chess tournaments, because people are going to say, hey, the Ruy Lopez doesn't give me an advantage against the martial attack. The Italian game doesn't give me an advantage. So why wouldn't I, sometimes play the Gleck instead, just to, get something different, avoid my opponent's preparation. And basically it's at no cost now that all the other main lines have been equalized as well. So I think you'll see more and more of these kind of openings. And here's a piece of chess world trivia. Do you guys know who is a Gleck system main? Which perhaps famous person in the chess world who is not a grandmaster or an IM or a titled player, but who is a Gleck main, has played thousands of games with it, as Viral Stigma alluded to. Potential experience advantage. An untitled player who is still somewhat famous perhaps in the chess world. Igor Gleck was a grandmaster himself. But that's a good guess, Cross Online. That's a very good guess. Hey, Leviathan, welcome in. I'm going to put straight zeros on this opening. Make the Sensei eval bar disappear here. And hey to T-Drev. A good guess from General Blorp as well, guessing Agad Mator. That's probably one of the more famous chess players who's not a titled player, right? Sure, you can take a shot in the dark and say, uh-oh. This may be the end of the stream, folks. I've got some coconut stuck in my throat, folks. Okay, after 4 minutes, basic move from Magnus, bishop g2, bishop b7, a4, a5. All moves I thought were very, very likely. And here, maybe knight c3 is pretty flexible, but I don't know how flexibly Magnus is going to play here versus trying to grab some space, right? This may be a special opportunity to grab some space. What does he want to do with this bishop? To me, what's harmonious is kind of expanding on the king side here, letting the bishop out that way, not making any more weaknesses here, potentially lifting the rook. So the most aggressive move is f4. The most flexible move is knight c3. Okay, Magnus now goes for the trade. That's a mild surprise to me. You want me to make a second Sensei eval for Magnus's game, huh, Oscar Chess? That's gonna be tricky. I'm not set up to do that. I can manage it in about 2 to 3 minutes, but I don't know how much value it would. I don't know if it would be worth the 2 minutes of me not talking about the games. So the answer to the quiz question is going to come up now, okay? So, funny answer from General Blorp saying that Morphy might have been an untitled player. Interesting. But you've probably seen Morphy's games, right, General Blorp? And Morphy played what? The Italian game mainly, right? Evans Gambits and that sort of straight up, honest to goodness, come out and slug fight e4, e5 kind of openings. So the answer is Eric. The answer is Eric, CEO of chess.com. Kostya's bishop drops back. So we see White had an idea in mind by not playing the main Gleck with knight c3, right? When they play this d3 move order, okay, we can see that they've got something special in mind. They play c3, and it looks like they may be planning a queenside expansion, like in an Italian, but with the bishop here instead of, tucking around and ducking in and out of the pawns as they advance. So Kostya just steps back in advance. I think another really plausible move for Kostya was a5, sort of shutting that down. But he just steps back, and if White plays a4, he can then play a5. If White plays b4, he could then play either a6 or a5, something like that, which is logical. On Magnus's board, pretty aggressive, d4 right here, limiting that knight and grabbing some central territory. So he's got a lot of space right now, does Magnus already. Black plays g6, looking at his pawn. And c3 is undesirable because it weakens the light squares. Queen d5, Black can just put a knight on d6 and protect both their pawns. And then e6 will be a fine move to get rid of that queen at some point. G6. Yeah, what's Magnus's plan? And very interesting to see Magnus spending more time than Vincenz here. Normally, people would be intimidated in an open facing Magnus, and they would be burning a bunch of time trying to be extra cautious and the like, right? But so far, props to Vincenz on, playing logical moves and just playing them quickly instead of worrying about Magnus being there the whole time. That's a good point, Viral Stigma. Magnus could potentially lift a rook, sack this pawn, play rook d3 defending the knight, and then win back his pawn on d7. I suppose so. Here's Aragai's board. It also started with g4 as a comparison. Arjun did not play b6. But the other lower rated player did also play this. This is a good move from Christian. Arjun takes it and now thinking, what's wrong with taking here? Attacking the knight? He does. All right, so White's got a little positional advantage on this board. We can see right away, right? With that black h7 pawn backward and isolated, and White's queen in a much nicer spot than Black's as well. Huh. This could actually be a major advantage for Christian, what's his last name? Christian Friedrich Köhler. Has a pleasant advantage here out of the opening against Arjun Erigaisi, I would say. Who would have known, right? And then, yeah, here we got Magnus playing this slightly undesirable move, c3 to defend this, weakening light squares around the king without a light squared bishop. And nice move from Vincenz, still playing reasonably quickly, h5. Hooking with this pawn to get the queen strong. And I think Magnus is going to play g5 to keep that black queen tucked in. I can't imagine him playing gh5, queen h5. I think he'd be much, much worse with white in 7 moves. So I'm pretty sure he'll play g5. I guess h3 is technically possible. There's, if black takes, that's not yet good for them, right? They don't want to give white the h-file. But the thing about h3 is black kind of controls this tension, right? In that you basically never want to take, and you always have to worry they might take. Plus, I think g5 is pretty good against black's knight, bishop, and queen. So I just think it's what he's going to choose, even though it's more pawns on dark squares. Yeah, he does. So he's not being dogmatic about color complexes. He puts all the pawns on dark squares, but they do block in the black pieces for the moment. And I think Magnus's plan is to pretty aggressively grab all this central space. He is also going to have to develop, though, to hold the space that he takes. But right now, it's not obvious how black could prevent this move e4, right? Somehow, their pieces are not in position. d5 just loses the pawn to the queen. So black's pieces are not in position to defend against Magnus's current greedy plans. Probably a pleasant position for Magnus. Let's check out what white's thinking of here against Kostya. Alexander Burks comes up with knight a3. The idea knight c4 to track down this bishop and grab the bishop pair. If I were Kostya, that would be an existential threat to me. So I would be slightly unhappy about it. I'd be like, why did I play bishop b6? And I'd be looking at moves like a6 and a5 still to tuck the bishop on a7 and telling myself I should have just done that in one move. Last move, Hey, Kurabo, I'm glad that you like our podcast. And you're convinced that success in chess is 99% hard work and stubbornness. So you would say that talent would be 1% or less of somebody's success? And by success, do you mean like a 1200 having fun, or a 500 getting up to 1,000, or somebody becoming a top grandmaster? What is success to you? Is it relative to the person, or relative to the whole chess world, or relative to winning and losing, or relative to enjoying the game, or fulfilling your artistry, or etc.? Of course, boss. Come on in. The more the merrier. You want to make a Zoom because I'm logged out right now, and send me a link and I'll bring you in? Skibix, you want to know about a Wonder Liang's game, maybe? Okay, but there's going to be a limit to how many things I can cover all over the place here at once. So just let people know in advance. It's not my personal style or strength to cover millions of things at once. My brain just kind of overloads. I don't see the move bishop f8 on a Wonders game, huh? we'll go back to Kostya. Looks like we might be in Zoom, but where is the Zoom? Deliberate practice, yeah. Let's see if Zoom will load this one this time. Okay. I think we're in.
How you doing, bud?
Doing all right. How about you?
Good, man. Yeah. Oh, you're covering all kinds of things, dude.
I'm trying to cover two things. Sort of. Do you want to put your video on and I can add you into my
Sure.
to my place?
I didn't even know about the Fisher Random Open, dude.
Oh yeah. Big stuff. Big stuff.
Okay, I got a Fisher Random question for you, bud, because you're following that more than me.
Is it how to castle?
No, that's too complicated, dude. I got easier questions than that. So I just saw that Neiman showed up at Grenke, and the question then was, what happened to him? Why didn't he go to Paris, dude?
I don't know. I watched a video on why Ferrugia didn't play, and he lives there. But it was a video by Jan Henrik Buttner, so it certainly only presented, one very clear side of it. But no, I don't know what happened with Hunt. I have no idea why he didn't show up.
Yeah, dude, it's turning into a hot mess. Did you watch that Naroditsky video?
Let me capture Jesse's audio on stream. Okay, the Naroditsky video. You mean the long conversation with Dina?
Oh no, I didn't see that. No, his whole thing. Someone tagged you on Twitter.
Oh, on Twitter. Yeah, I saw the thing on Twitter. Yeah.
Yeah, that was like, oh my god.
About how he went to Weissenhaus, and then they had 5 commentators for the broadcast, and they only needed 4, and then he went home.
Anyways, yeah. So it started. It feels like this Fisher Random dude is like, he's lost his mind.
I mean, the odds weren't great that he was going to be a great dude, right? Given that the first thing we knew about him was that he was a billionaire, right? Like, the odds that that's going to be like a really cool, awesome dude. I mean, I really wanted it to be great, and I wanted him to be great, or at least pretty good, So I had high hopes myself, but if it turns out that he's, eccentric or a megalomaniac or something like that, it wouldn't be like the greatest surprise the world has seen, no?
I mean, at least from Naroditsky's telling, it really just seemed like a hot mess of an organization, and kind of like naive wishful thinking about, like, oh, for sure this thing's gonna take over and stuff, yada yada. Also, the idea that they were gonna make money off of it, I'm like, really? You think you're gonna make money off of this thing right away?
Yeah, if they think they're gonna make money off of it, I'm surprised.
Yeah, where would that money come from?
I mean, the money comes from them, right?
Well, right. I mean, where would the source of the money be? Anyways, okay. I just noticed something. I was looking at the Grenke games. Is that Christopher Yu is playing?
Yep.
That's probably his first tournament back or something.
Well, the thing is, Christopher Yu was banned by the USCF, but nobody else.
Interesting. Okay.
So this whole time, he could have gone to any other country and played FIDE-rated events.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's been about 8 months or something like that since it went down.
6 or 7. I think the U.S. championships are in October in general.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe 7 months.
Okay, I'm trying to find Kostya.
Yeah.
And you were following Kostya's. How'd you feel about his tournament, dude?
Oh, he's in good form. I can tell you that.
Oh, really, dude?
Yeah.
I was like, I'm worried about the kid.
Yeah. I didn't expect that he'd be in good form in his first tournament, but he's playing 4 tournaments over 2 months on one trip. I thought he'd be in good form by the end, right? But yeah.
I guess I saw two things I was concerned with. Like, one was the end game he refused to play on when he was significantly better, and then that last round when he lost, that was, oh, dude, what are you doing, buddy? So I don't know. Anyways, I was concerned. It felt like, especially the draw, it felt like a crisis of confidence or something. Definitely the draw thing was a crisis of confidence.
Well, did you hear him come on and talk about it?
No.
Okay, so right after you were there, I didn't know because you were in the chat room right before he connected, I guess. When he came on and talked about it, he said that he got the repetitions wrong by accident. He tried to repeat once and then keep playing. But then he realized that like the move where he needed to deviate had to be with his rook on e1, and he'd already moved it away from e1 once, and if he came to e1 again, then when the guy writes rook h8 on his score sheet, it's a draw. And that's what happened. The guy wrote rook h8 on his score sheet and told him he was going to claim a draw, and Kostya said, yeah, you're right.
Man.
So
it's weird.
He said he thought he was better and he was trying to win, and he was disappointed.
Okay. That's at least a better story than the way it looked.
Yeah.
I'm at the ChessCom page, Grenke page, and I'm not seeing his game, dude.
I
seeing it
sent
on
you the
your
direct link for his game.
Oh, okay.
In your Discord.
But
so
is it not on the
bypass
ChessCom?
It is in the ChessCom Grenke thing, but they've got, I don't know, 100 live boards. So you have to scroll for days.
Oh, okay. Got it. So, well, let's talk about this game, dude. Let me turn off my little sound here. So D3, kind of strange. Whatever. Playing chess.
Yeah, the guy's playing like the King's Indian defense with white, more or less.
Yeah, it's a little weird. I guess I would rather be white though. Yeah. I'm wondering, maybe bishop b6 is a mild inaccuracy.
That's what I thought, and I had a very basic question here, which was why white did not play knight c4.
Yeah. Well, I mean, presumably he's concerned about bishop takes, pawn takes, knight takes e4.
Yeah, I hadn't calculated this. Now I have knight e5, knight f2, huh? Okay. So bishop e6 prevented knight c4. Good job, Kostya.
But it's not clear the bishop really wants to be there. And
yeah, okay.
So,
let me ask a different question. Knight g5. And then knight c4.
Presumably then Kostya would just let him take it, and then try to play on the f file or something. Okay, I'm no great expert. I would just say on move 7 for Kostya, it would have been simpler to play the kind of standard A6 move.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or
And then
A5.
just, or I don't know why I'm prejudiced against A5, but I'm
Sure.
sure A5 is fine. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean A5. You can also go A4 and just keep going.
Hmm.
Standard as well.
Okay, so maybe mild inaccuracy.
Yep.
And then the weird question is like we've seen loads of positions. If we go to knight C2, H6, right?
Mm-hmm.
We've seen loads of positions like this with the knight on D2,
Mm-hmm.
but now we have this knight on C2, and it's just a little, oh, it's a little Fisher random, right?
Yeah.
It's a little Fisher random.
Yeah, I mean, I've also seen a few games lately in the Italian game like this with a bishop on B3 for white instead of G2. There's a whole knight A3 to C2 line that gets played there now. Maybe last move Kostya should have just played D5 himself.
Well, I think D5 is always a little bit controversial because it's not clear you actually want to do it. Because it doesn't really help any of your pieces. All right, this dude's a slow-mo. Do we have a YouTube link too, like last time?
No.
With a picture? Because I just feel like this guy's got to be an old guy. He's playing like a septuagenarian over here.
with H3, the slow oozing.
Alexander Berkes, which I think is originally a Hungarian name.
Yep.
Just look him up. Alexander Berkes.
I'm doing the same. The first thing Kostya would have done is look up his birth year.
Born in 1998. 1998. It's not that doesn't make you a young pup anymore though, but to me that's like, oh, you're born yesterday.
Yeah, but 27 is an unusual age to be playing such oozy moves.
I think though there's a lot to be said for if you're going to play against E4, E5 to play oozy. No, like for example, if you play the bishop outside the pawn chain, like a Rui, you could play a slow ooze.
Mm-hmm.
So there's similarities to this and the slow ooze. I think there's real questions about how black should play. It's a little, even though I'm sure H3 is not the best move, but it does just like ask black a question of what does he want to do.
Mm-hmm. By the way, Jesse, I know you're probably not interested in watching two boards at once, but Magnus's opponent just sacked a piece against him in the opening on move 9 with black, showing absolutely no respect. Very, very interesting. I can send you the link if you want to see it, but I don't know if you.
No, I see it on our stream there.
You see it?
That just looks like a soup. That looks like a real chess soup over there.
Well, we can say Magnus pushed a lot of pawns in this opening, right? He didn't do much developing, so.
And when he castles David, okay, here's a good test for me. So if white castles, his rook goes to D1 and his king goes to C1.
Yeah, so you'd have to move the knight and bishop out of the way.
That's obscene.
And that really wouldn't safeguard the king very much, right? I think.
I'm just trying to learn those rules, dude. Yeah. This position doesn't make me feel good.
I think what he'd like to do is play rook A3, bishop E3, knight C3, and then castle the really long way to G1. But I have to say, I think black sacrifice looks completely reasonable. Completely reasonable.
Probably okay. That's a weird position.
I could see anything happening with that game.
So Nordovich asks, is D5 reasonable for Kostya?
Mm-hmm.
And to my eye, white will play queen E2. And the only value to D5 is if, well, for one, you would prevent knight E3. In most cases, anyway. Maybe not in all cases. But so after queen E2, we're going to get this like stable King's Indian attack structure. And the weird thing there is just the knight on C2 is unusual. And I don't quite know what he intends. I mean, H3, it looks like he's intending G4. I kind of hope he doesn't do it. But I don't know. Sometimes when you see H3, it's like, is the guy gonna do it? Is he gonna go for it with G4? Maybe.
I agree with General Blorp's prediction, which is that white is planning King H2, defending the H3 pawn some more. Very, very slow progress.
Like, by the way, if I was white, if I was just gonna if I was playing blitz, it would be Queen E2 because I think that's where the queen's going anyway. Maybe H3 is also just with the simple claim that we don't want to allow Queen D7 and controlling G4 H3. Well, maybe it's not so dumb that way.
No.
It's definitely true that black. I don't know what to do as black.
Yeah, I think there's a big question about D4 being played for white. And one of my reasons for playing D5 as black is just so white doesn't play D4.
Yeah, I'm not going to do it anytime soon.
Of course, it doesn't seem like this particular white player is going to play D4, but D4 looks fine for white.
I mean, it also, if I wanted to do it, I could have done it last move.
Yeah, it's been a couple moves that I've been wondering.
I have to admit, D4 wasn't even on my radar.
Yeah.
I don't think I like it though, because like, let's say you do it and I go snip and you're going to go snop, right? And I go D5.
So I'm going to do it instead of H3 for a second, right? I'm going to play D4.
Yeah, okay.
Snip, snop. You play D5 surely, right?
Yeah, D5.
Then white probably plays E5.
And then 94.
And then 94. And then we get that Situatsk. And
I think black's fine.
Yeah, I guess black's fine. This structure is not very clear to me.
To me, it's all about that weird knight on C2. I'm just trying to, like, okay, imagine D5 now, Queen E2. And then black could do any number of things, like rook E8's natural, Queen D7's natural. How does the knight on C2 do stuff? That's what I'm trying to figure.
Right. I mean, you might want to go knight E3, knight F5, but the E pawn's hanging.
Exactly, right.
So maybe you play knight H4, and I'm sure he would play king H2 first, but I'll just try to introduce an idea. Knight H4, defending the E pawn extra with the bishop. Because of the G3 pawn, I don't have to calculate knight E4, I don't think. And now I'm just going to play a random move for black, like Queen D7. And, well, maybe that forces King H2, Rook A8, Knight E3. So white heads to F5.
Now, one thing you'd have to calculate, though, is instead of Rook A8, does G5... No, never mind. Yeah, G5 could be a little annoying.
Sure. Okay, I mean, move basic would be knight F3.
Let's pretend it's forced, yeah.
Now I'm kind of bottled up as white.
Yeah. So now maybe Rook A8. And I'm just saying you can't really move bows. And that I just want to make... My philosophy as black here would just be like, if you can't move your knight on C2, then you're worse. That's my only old man philosophy I got here for us. Okay, but let me try a different approach.
But here, what if I play knight takes G5 now? Woo!
I mean, maybe bows. Maybe.
Yeah.
Let me try a different approach as white, though.
Yeah.
So why don't, okay, so we're in this position. H3, you want to play D5 as black, right?
I'm open to it. Yeah. I'm happy to do it.
Okay, I want to play Queen E2.
Yeah. And we'll go
D5.
rook E8 again. That's fine.
All right, so D5, Queen E2. And then I want to ask B4.
Mm-hmm. Kostya played Queen D7 though. He's first.
It's probably going to be
H2. Yeah, it could be similar.
We both think King H2, though maybe this madman, maybe this madman will play G4. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, here's a fun thing. So, I recently spent, 72 hours using the Dojo tracker, looking at Alekhine's best games. And this thing that Simon Williams kind of popularized as the lion,
mm-hmm.
which I guess would be the spirit of the lion would be the move G4. Thank God White didn't play it. That would be the spirit of the move King. By the way, King H2 is always going to be useful just because you don't want to be on the same diagonal as the bishop on B6.
Yeah.
Anyways, one of the things that was fascinating was there's a footnote in one of the early games, and he talks about Marco, this guy Marco, and how he had pioneered that whole system. And then he mentions, dude, just the barbaric, Philidor as black and then H6, G5.
Yeah. Nice.
So one problem for Kostya now is Queen D7 probably didn't hurt anything, but we still need a plan. And you know me pretty well, David, that I'm concerned about Mr. Knight on C6. Like, it's a pretty terrible knight.
Mm-hmm.
So.
But you're planning to evict it anyway.
Well, it's especially when you play D5 that I think B4's. B4 is just an interesting space grab anyway.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of it makes my knight sometimes do things.
All right.
If I expand on the queen side,
I play
my
A6.
own knight, terrible C2 knight. But anyways, especially after D5, I think it makes some sense.
Yeah. So I'll try A6 in answer to B4 because my knight is needed to defend the E-pawn. No matter what we're saying about the knight, I actually have to keep it where it's at.
You played a rook B8, B4, A6. Okay. Oh, okay. We continue the party here with A4.
Yeah. All right. And now let me try and change the tone of things with D4.
D4.
D, dog 4 for black.
Oh yeah, that was a bad move.
Okay.
Because I'm just gonna. You want to play C4 bishop takes C4? Is that your dirty trick?
I don't know. We'll find out.
But you got to do it, right? Oh, okay. D5 played,
D5's
so we're on target.
Okay, should we play C4? Bishop C4?
I'm just thinking about. By the way, I think just in general, D4 is not a good move.
Okay.
Because bishop B2 looks good, and I'm just calculating C4, bishop C4. Yeah. And you're kind of, when you do it, you're going to be giving up your nice bishop for my terrible knight, I guess. And maybe do it. All right, I'm just going to play bishop B2, David.
Yeah.
I'm a simple man.
I think that's a pretty nice move. I keep feeling like Kostya maybe misplaced this queen on D7.
Mm-hmm. So actually, Dave, if we go back, like, okay, so D5,
yeah,
there's a lot of variations like this. And actually, I think it's very teachable because I think there's a lot of players who instinctively want to do it, but it doesn't actually improve any of black's minors after, say, queen e2.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And one thing we saw with that d4 push is because you have zero control, because the knight's on c2 is working on d4, there's no
Yeah.
chance for you to get control of that. And it's like a very bad, it turns into a very bad reverse Najdorf structure, right?
Yep. I agree. Black had everything there. Everything. Or, I mean, white in this case. Sorry.
Right.
You had everything. I was unhappy. But honestly, I'm just a little bit jammed up here with my queen on d7, so knight e5 is always with tempo, and my knight on c6 is stuck, and my bishop can't move off e6 so that the rook could defend the e-pawn. I'm not happy about the queen on d7, truly. I'm feeling constrained.
Well, how about this, David? How about d5, queen e2, and maybe we should play the prophylactic a5.
Yeah, I wanted to play that ages ago, but is the e5 pawn okay here?
Well, you'll give me the d3 pawn if you take everything.
Okay, simple enough, yeah.
That's actually a thing in the Philidor too, is a lot of times if black gets that b5 in, he's more than okay.
Mm-hmm.
So a4 here, a5,
Yeah.
preventing it. Usually pretty good. But you would think that it's not on Kostya's mind because he hasn't already done it. Right?
Yeah.
He had that chance a long time ago.
Yeah, when white first played c3 threatening b4, his response was bishop b6, not a5. So it's been, 4 moves now that he has not shown an interest in this move.
Now, David, one thing that I'm very uncertain of is in our position with a5, maybe white could play b4 anyway, because his knight on c2. Maybe.
And then a takes b4.
C takes.
C takes.
Oh, that's an interesting position.
Jesse, the dojo's getting stronger. We've got 2 masters here in the chat room.
Oh, nice, dude.
That's nice. Nice stuff.
Oh my god, I found all of the spices that your brother brought from Taiwan. I knew they were somewhere.
Does it have the chili stuff? Yeah. Really?
So you can come go through it with me when you're done with this.
I can come cook for you when I'm done? Okay. No, Kostya's playing Alexander Burkish.
There's been a couple Hungarian players who are named Berkesh, who are there's a GM, I believe, who's a Berkesh.
Yeah, Ferenc. I mean, I don't know how to say his first name, but
yeah,
I think he even touched 2,700 on one rating list. So he's quite a strong player.
So this b4 is interesting because I think normally if the knight, obviously the knight on c2 is doing magic. It's not just protecting b4, but it's covering this d4 square too.
Mm-hmm.
So I think this b4 is actually surprisingly strong.
Well, I'd be happy to trade my a pawn. I don't mind this version here for Kostya.
Actually, I might do a take back
mm-hmm.
on this particular thing because maybe you can win my a pawn with d-e-d-e rook a2.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you've got maybe b5 and the e pawn.
I might have b5. It's true. It's true. I may have b5.
It's hard to say. b5 knight a7, right? It gets pretty long and complicated. This kind of stuff here. Knight b4. But it doesn't seem amazing for white. I think a5 is quite a plausible move to dissuade white from b4.
It's interesting that he's taking forever on d5. Is he thinking about no? Because knight h4, then g5, we're truly winning the pawn, right?
Right. So what's weird, folks, is, as Jesse points out, is White has been thinking after d5. And we all assumed that we were in White's head and that whenever d5 was played, White would just play queen e2. Why? To avoid a queen trade. Right?
And
just
here the
hold
queen
that
trade
tension,
would,
defend the e-pawn.
the queen trade would lose the pawn on f2 as well. So it's like there's no tactics or anything even.
Right. So is there anything he's thinking about other than queen e2? It's very hard to say. And that's the kind of move where you don't know what Black's going to play after you play queen e2. It's not like you say, well, I've got to figure out my next move. Queen e2 is exactly the kind of move you bash out and let your opponent burn their time.
Yeah. I mean, if we had the vid cam, maybe we would find out that he's away at the potty. I don't know.
Yeah. The video's amazing. A great thing to have.
Well, my friends, what is what's this guy going on about? Now, let me just say the bummer that David's probably already talked about in the last tournament is when you play in an open like this and you play somebody who's rated 2000, basically anything under 2200, you're really just in a losing scenario in terms of your norm hunt. Because if you lose or draw your tournaments, it's not technically over.
It's over.
But
it's over.
It's not technically over, but as David said, it's basically over.
It's over. I once played a tournament, Jesse, where like I drew in the first round against a 2000.
Yeah.
And then I won and then I, won the next couple games. Got to play like 5 GMs. Beat one or two of them, drew the other ones. Like I didn't lose to anybody, and I couldn't get a norm. It's hopeless because once you don't beat a 2000, like you're gonna play at least one more, right? So basically, by drawing a 2000, I got a second game against a 2000 that I had to win the next day.
Yeah.
And then I finally started my tournament in round 3 or 4. It was just too late. And last round, not everybody knows how norm tournaments work. So during this last tournament, people kept coming in and asking me about Kostya's chances to get a norm because at some point he'd won 4 or 5 games, and he had a score like 4-1 or 5-2 or something like that. The score looks really good, right? And I was like, well, no, unfortunately, Kostya lost in round 2 to a GM, and even that ruined his norm chances. Basically, at the end of norm, you have to beat the first GM you play or draw the first GM you play. You can't, on your first up pairing, you can't get beat down because he lost 1 game to a GM and got 3 more 2000s in a row off the back of that. Right? So then he got up to 4-1, but he hadn't beaten anyone over his rating. And in fact, he'd already played 4 people who were basically below the minimum rating for GM norms. And it's just like impossible. Even if you score 100%, I don't know if you can get a GM norm, right? If they're 2080 and your performance is supposed to be 2600.
Well, yeah. So like I was saying, it's basically just a losing situation. So you have to win to hopefully get a real opponent the next round. But it's just a pure loss scenario. It's like there's no win. There's no upside in terms of the norm hunt. David, I had an idea for Black. How about on Queen E2? We play Rook A D8 with the claim that B4 will be met with DE, DE, Queen D3.
Okay, so you could press for this D3 square as fast as possible.
And one of the bummers for White is if I land there and I take on C3, whether it's with a rook or a queen, I'll be tempoing the knight.
Right.
So I don't think he can play B4 after Rook A D8.
I agree with you, but I'm confirming it.
Nordovich says Rook D1 in this position. You cannot play Rook D1 because DE loses your coconuts.
Yeah. Yeah. And here we're talking about like the whole tree, not just one of the nuts.
Nordovich asks, is rating more important for Kostya right now? Anyways, they're both important. You know, he has a long trek to go.
Does he have a norm yet, Jesse?
My understanding from our conversations was no.
Right. So 150 rating points and 3 norms. I mean, each of those is an ocean. I mean, yeah. It's so far away, I don't think you can even judge the distance to say which one's further. Yeah. And that said, I mean, Kostya is not talking about norms all the time, right? It's just people watching.
Oh, he's on the norm hunt. He's definitely hunting for it.
He's just playing chess. He's just playing chess when I talk to him.
Oh, he's hunting. Come on.
Do I think Kostya would need to study about 6 to 8 hours a day to reach a GM level, 2,500 and 3 norms?
No.
Probably.
No, I think 3 hours a day is a good diet.
3 hours a day is a joke.
No, 3 hours a day is fine.
That's dipping your toes.
He would need also like a head check, dude. That some of these things, like where he lost that last round. Okay, White took, and I was guessing. I don't know. He was gonna do something like this. I think he was overthinking the Queen E2. This is typical with a lower rated player. He overthought it, and now, unless something really weird's happening, I'm just gonna say he's worse.
Yup. Wah, wah.
Okay, but let's just play devil's advocate, David. So let me try to defend White's honor.
Yep.
How do you want to recapture?
Before we defend White's honor, do you have a suggested evaluation here?
Depends a little bit on how I'm not quite ready. Like intuitively, I would say Black is better, but I do have an idea for White that I need to test out.
All right. Let's try taking on D5 with the knight.
All right, let's go knight. All right, the idea that I'm wondering maybe he could try is C4.
Whoa. Gotcha. All right, knight E7.
B4.
Relax, Jesse. What did Black ever do to you?
Okay, knight takes D5 was played, so we're going to see if this is maybe his idea. Again, though, I'm trying to make use of this knight. That's really what I'm doing. I'm trying to make the knight on C2 do something. But...
yeah, harnessing it.
I think that looks, at least the knight E7 B4 thing looks like White's in okay, right?
I'm playing E4 here.
Okay. Now, on E4, I'm going to claim that I'm maybe a little bit more than okay after C5. Maybe I'm just okay, but I don't think I'm in trouble. I'll put it that way.
Pawn
maybe
takes F3.
I don't know. Let me just say I don't know. Queen takes.
Queen takes.
Let's just say he doesn't know.
Rook A D8.
Right, C takes. Pawn takes bishop.
Yep. A takes.
And then B5.
B5. Bishop D5.
Don't I have pawn takes knight?
You do.
You're going to do something fancy to me?
I take back with the queen.
Look at this fancy guy. What am I down a pawn? Well, that's pretty fancy. I want to give you that.
Thank you. I do try.
I still think it's totally fine. Let's see, knight b4,
Mm-hmm. Bishop f3.
knight c6.
Bishop c6. This is the first time I ever got a good position against you in an analysis line.
Well, maybe today, but yeah, you're doing okay. You're doing okay. Okay, so
What do
let's
you
look
mean?
at this.
I'm up a pawn and the
You're
d
doing
pawn's
great.
weak,
You're
right?
doing great.
Yeah.
You're doing great.
Crazy.
So I'm just trying to make it work, by the way.
Yeah, of course.
D5.
No, you're taking on the harder task here. Very creative. B4,
Okay.
E4,
Play D4.
C5.
So what he's trying to do is the master liquidator, the Tauschmaschine.
Tauschmaschine.
Okay, and if we want to believe in the Tauschmaschine, the claim is very simple: is that he felt endangered by Queen E2, maybe Queen E2, Rook A8, and he was like, "I got to pull the plug." Yeah.
Although if you don't play B4, Rook 88 is not terribly menacing, right? This alternative position we talked about.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if I play like Rook E1, let's say, and Black plays DE4, DE4, Queen D3, I mean, that's just a game, right? It's just a game.
David, can I do my C4 one more time? I
Yeah.
just want to follow up on it. So B4, E4. Instead of getting so fancy with C5,
Yeah.
let me just take on E4 like a normal person.
I hoped you would. Queen D1.
I hoped you would. Rook D1.
Rook D1. Bishop C4.
Bishop C4. Okay. Maybe Bishop F2 might be stronger.
I was worried after Bishop F2 that if you attacked it with your rook, I might be trapped.
Okay.
Like only square B6 and then C5. So I would have liked to take on F2, but I think I got to do this. And long ago, I expected you to do this and then play Bishop E3.
Yeah, Bishop E3. I think White's okay.
Yeah, White's sort of limping towards being okay. I play Rook FD8.
Yeah. Especially because that knight on E7 is nobody special. We're doing okay. Yeah, we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Okay, well, let's look at the game then.
But
D4.
I think I would slightly prefer to be Black here.
Yeah, and also my intuition is that Black in our game position should be able to find something. But we got to say it's a little tricky here. So if you do not take, White is threatening C4, D5.
Weird move, this D4 follow-up. Looks like it can't be particularly good, but if we try to give White a lot of respect, if ED4, Knight D4, White's going to try and grab our nice bishop on E6, huh?
Yeah, it's not the dumbest thing. At least I'm not seeing what we do immediately right away. Okay, well, we're gonna give this young German man with Hungarian roots. We're gonna give him at least he thought about a creative solution here.
Yeah. By the way, Kuribo, in order to simplify a game, Kostya doesn't need to see a way to convert a pleasant endgame into a win, you know? You just have to play a lot of moves in the game and play good moves, and you know, if you get a playable endgame, that can be perfectly happy for you.
Okay, David, let me try to get a minimal advantage for Kostya. Okay, so I'll play ED4.
Yeah.
I'm assuming you take with a C knight.
Yeah, I'll take it with a C knight, though I don't know how much it matters.
Now, notice that C knight was the weird knight, and now Kostya gets to get rid of his poor knight on C6. So we're going to play knight takes D4.
Yep, the next knight comes.
And now I want to play the simple Rook A8. And I want to claim that your bishop on C1 has no great development squares.
Sorry, you're doing what here?
I'm gonna. It's a soft claim. I'm gonna claim that your bishop on C1 doesn't have any great development
So you
squares.
just go rook d8?
Yeah. And then I got a little development jump as well.
Okay. He's got the jump. All right. Knight takes e6.
Right. Queen takes.
Okay. Queen g4.
He wants to do the Tausch machine. Okay. Again, though, your bishop doesn't have a lot of squares.
Yep. I'm trading queens so that, the development thing is not as big a deal. So I've got more time to get my bishop out by slowing down the game a little.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't trade queens, then I get a tempo. And you got to keep bishop takes h6 covered.
Okay, I'll just play queen f6.
Queen f6.
And if I was just my next move, I'd probably play c6.
Mm-hmm. Hang on, dog. What if I play bishop d2 here? I just found a square for that bishop.
Maybe you did. Let's see, maybe two. Let me try to make it my idea a little bit more exact, David.
Yeah.
So instead of immediate knight takes d4, I move 14. Let me try rook a d8. Is it a big difference? I don't know. Maybe not, but it seems natural enough.
But you don't like that knight on c6.
Yeah, but I think you're going to trade him probably anyway or something.
But if I trade on e6, I can leave you with the guy you don't like.
You can leave me the guy you know, but I'm just trying to stop you from developing easily. That's all I'm doing.
Okay. All right, knight takes c6.
Yeah, I'm going to try queen takes. I might do a take back.
Yep, knight d4.
Now, unfortunately, really wanted to make knight c3 work, but
Yeah.
I think you've got knight c6 and knight e7.
Right, rook d1, knight e7, king somewhere, pawn takes knight. Now the rook's hanging. Maybe it could go to d7. But even if it does, there's bishop a3. You're not going to come out on top.
You're
Bishop a3, c5.
Okay, let's just.
I think that traps the knight, Jesse. I mean,
Okay, let's go. Knight c3,
yeah.
knight c6, rook d1. I don't know. It's really okay. So, but by the way, the claim is also that your pawn on f2 is going to hang. So, knight e7 check,
Mm-hmm.
king h8, pawn takes knight, rook takes rook, bishop takes rook e8, and I win the knight.
Oh, okay, you want to do it this way? Rook takes rook, bishop takes rook, rook e8.
That's a coconut.
And you're up a pawn.
That was amazing.
That
Now
is quite a line.
I don't know if it's true. That was a little interesting line. By the way, but it is true that if Kostya's going to win this game, it's going to be like on some kind of detail like that. All right, so if that's true, then
Jeez, Louise. Knight takes c3?
yeah. By the way, I'm not 100% yet. You might even on knight c3, maybe you can do like something nasty like queen c2 or queen h5. I don't know.
Then you... Oh, because your queen's attacked by everybody, huh?
Yeah, I don't know, buddy. I got my own problems over here. Yeah, I don't know about this knight c3, buddy.
Queen c2. Yeah, that looks like too much, huh? Queen c2, then knight e6.
Like I've lost my mind.
You just wanted to make it cool. Magnus has won his game. His opponent just immediately after that promising sacrifice traded queens, hung a pawn on the 7th rank, and well, I don't think Magnus's last move was bishop c1, but probably castle's queenside actually, and the board got confused.
Well, let's say the obvious here for people watching Kostya's game. So Black has to come up with something now, or else this is really going to fizzle. He needs some kind of creative idea, if nothing else, just to keep the game going.
Right. Those positions we were looking at, Jesse, my instinct was that there was a good chance they were very, very equal.
All right, let me try something else maybe to give it a little zip. So rook a8, knight c6. Let's just try pawn takes knight. I know. You don't have to tell me. No, I'm not going to do it. I take it back. Okay, so first of all, I don't see anything better than ed4 because c4 is a pain in the butt. And then knight c takes, and then that knight on d4 is a pain in the butt too. This is the good old-fashioned German Tausch machine right here.
Yeah.
Now, David is saying absolutely zero chance. You know, I like those. Sometimes I like the stats. You know, you see a person's stats of like the way chess numbers some used to do. It would give you stats on like who's going to qualify and stuff.
Yeah.
And so it would just, his chances would just go down dramatically. You know, once the draw. But it's not completely over, especially because this is a black game.
Yeah.
But as David said, like next round he would get, right, if he drew this one, next round you get a 2,000, so that's just another no-win situation. And then if he won that, he would probably still not go up at that point.
Yeah.
So it'd be
No, if he draws this game, he can't get a norm.
No, it's still possible, but you just have to start
not
your
possible.
tournament at round 4. If he's starting your quest at round 4. Yeah, it's rough though.
It used to be for norm purposes, they would float one opponent per tournament up to the minimum rating. So for a GM norm where you needed 2,600 perf, they would float one under 2,200 up to 2,200. So that beating them would average in as 2,600 and not hurt your performance. One. If you play 3 or 4 of them, you're done.
Is that still something they do?
I think so.
Do you float one up to 2,600?
Up to 2,200.
One up to
so that beating them puts a 2,600 in your perf. It doesn't like ruin your perf, right? Because otherwise, if you beat like 4 people rated 2,000, it averages 2,400 into your performance rating 4 times. So your performance in the other 5 games would have to be basically 2,800 to get a GM.
Oh, no, David. My understanding is if you win a game, it can't hurt against you. So they'll float them all to 2,600. It just yeah, but it doesn't help you. It doesn't help you to have one game at 2,600. That's nothing. That's just
No, but in the past, I think they would only float one for you. which is why it would so end you to play multiple people below.
In any case, yeah, it's a bad scene. It's a bad scene.
All right. Kostya moves the knight back.
Oh, knight d7.
Beautiful.
So he's trying to get real frisky. Okay, so let's say this is an interesting move. Maybe his opponent missed it. Maybe we missed it. So,
we definitely missed it.
Well, I don't know if it actually does anything yet, but we got to look.
Sure.
So, but the point is that if knight e5 happens or de, Kostya will win the pawn on f2.
This is point number one.
One.
Because white has bishop b7, it's not even a simple case of material equality, right? It's still just a messy, exciting scenario.
I think then the real question, though, David, becomes when I play bishop e3, does knight f5 work for Kostya?
You mean in the live position?
Yeah, so bishop e3, knight f5.
Because taking on e5 looked maybe still equal as well, and very Tauschmaschine. But,
okay, actually, maybe we should look at that first, David, because I just thought maybe black would be better there, but maybe you're right.
I mean, it's so forcing, right? We're trading knights, we're trading queens. You're kind of forced to try and win back your pawns, but now we're splitting your queenside pawns too with bishop b7, right?
You're right. Good point.
And I mean, are we doing something like rook a8? White goes bishop e3. Now we're trying to win back our pawn on a2, but we're just taking everything off the board to do it.
Oh yeah, that's a Tauschmaschine
right? Like bishop e3, knight e3, rook d1, but it's always it's hard to even get your pawn back, right? Even with bishop a2, there's rook d7 or rook a1. The energy is just there for black.
Okay, but
maybe
let me just
rook
try
b8 at the end.
Let me try to defend Kostya's honor.
Yeah.
So bishop f2, right? Rook d1, bishop f2. Bishop b7. I'll try rook a b8.
Boy, not dog.
Yeah, boy, not dog. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll go bishop f3.
I think bishop at e4 is probably also plausible.
Yeah, that's better. Oh, sorry, I'll play your move. So here, one idea from Istvan Benedict. I don't know if you know him, Jesse. He's in the cohort below us. One idea here from him was to maybe play knight f5, but I think in this position, tactically, knight f5, king g2 looks very risky for black.
Also, I was looking at knight f. I would first of all, definitely knight f5 would be the move we're going to try to make work. But also knight f5, g4. I also don't know what we're doing there.
Yeah, fair.
Okay. So knight de7, a very frisky attempt, and bishop e3 probably is okay for... Well, now we'll say it is a good thing that this guy has a choice. If he didn't have a choice, maybe it wouldn't be so good.
Yeah.
But he has a choice here. But knight e5 is very natural, isn't it? Oh, dear. That's a real pain. That's a real Tauschmaschine, too. That's just like the full ripper.
Yeah. Takes. Rook a b8. I mean, white could even play king g2 after rook a b8, Jesse, instead of retreating the bishop.
Okay. Yeah.
That offers to just give back my pawn, right? My extra pawn. But to secure opposite colored bishops, it's almost better than a pawn if all you want is a draw.
Anyways, with that one position we've been looking at so far, it seems like we're just down a pawn. Like there's no great compensation I'm seeing.
There's a little something. Like after bishop e4, you can go rook f to d8. take the D file.
Okay, let's try.
I think white would go rook D8.
So yeah, rook D8, rook D8.
King G2.
Now, probably king G2.
Bishop B6.
And now if nothing else, I could play knight E3.
Yeah, knight E3 is decent, although, you know, it's still going to be really slow to develop those pieces, right?
But like I'm up a pawn and my king's better. And what is your knight doing? On E7, nobody knows.
Right. Okay, maybe it goes to C6 since you mentioned it. No, that's hanging it. G6. Sure. Yeah, knight G6.
Well, knight G6 is a good move.
Has Kostya simply blundered bishop B7? Unlikely, W. Reynolds. Unlikely.
I mean, let's just say I think knight D7, he tanked, 13 minutes. And one of the ways to think about that decision is just like looking at CD4 and saying, God, that's totally equal. So I'm going to mix it up with this weird thing.
Yeah. And Jesse means more than equal, folks. He means like dead equal. Like I can't do anything equal.
Yes, like that. All right, let's try to make this as precise as possible, David. So 95, 95, D, queen D1, rook D1, bishop F2, bishop B7, rook AB8. Now, your original move, bishop F3, also has the advantage of controlling the D1 square.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is nothing. There's so many moves that white can do to give back the pawn. Yeah, it can do anything.
Benedict suggesting rook b5 to try and win back the pawn on e5. I think that's a very tactical way of looking at the position, Benedict. I don't need to defend the pawn on e5, right? Because you are down a pawn and I'm white. So I will just play a move like king g2. I'll let you retreat your bishop. I'll let you take on e5. When you do, I will play bishop f4. So maybe I'll play the move like b4 or something, just developing my queenside majority. And when you take on b5, I will play bishop f4. And then everyone will say white's position is gorgeous, right? All the pieces come out, and black's queenside pawns are split, and winning back the e5 pawn does not give Kostya anything really to play with.
Also, maybe he's worse here, David.
Good one, Istvan.
All right, David, I'll make the claim that after 18 bishop f3, white's worse. Oh, yeah.
Wow, that's a heavy claim. All right, let's go knight g6 for black.
King g2.
King g2, bishop to the doghouse on boy 6.
But boy 6, then you just block that. So that was the point. That's the point. I was like, oh, I got to be better if you got to go there to block your rook.
That allows maybe bishop f4 because I've shut my own stuff
bishop
down,
f4.
Right?
But if you play bishop c5, I have b4, so I ain't complaining there.
Yeah, no, it's just as good for you. All right, let me try one more thing. Let's go bishop f3, rook fd8.
Okay. All right, so I'll go snip. King g2.
Snip and the king and bishop b6.
Okay. So the good news for me is you don't really have any threats.
Yeah. Not much. I mean, I might play bishop f5 next move, possibly. Or maybe knight g6. Because now on bishop f4, I can always trade and go to d2.
Yeah.
And it's not easy for you to clean up white's position, right? Like some people in chat are now saying, does white even have any compensation, right? Does black even have any compensation? Well, sort of, because it takes so many moves to clean up white's position. We have to defend a2 and d2 and develop the pieces, and h3 is like a drag on bringing the king to the e file to defend the penetration points there. So it's like so many moves to try and clean up white's position.
Mm-hmm. And I'll just stress, like, there's a lot of different ways for white to do Tauschmaschine here. You could play knight d4, you could just, there's a variety of ways. But it is true that I'm not, I wanted to make the claim that white was better, but I don't know if that, I'm just still working on that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just not.
Yeah.
Okay, let me make the claim. So a4.
Let's stop that pawn right there with a5.
Makes sense. So your next move might be knight g6.
Might be knight g6, might be bishop b3.
Yeah.
I mean, I wouldn't be like desperate in Kostya's position as far as my drawing chances, but I don't feel encouraged that I can get anything like a win at the moment. Anything to work with, really.
All right, let's see. Okay, so the big question. Okay, there's two questions after because we both feel that the key position that Kostya is going for in this is the one after bishop b7, right? And there, black has two moves: rook a b8 and rook a d8.
Yeah. Let's try my move again, because rook b8 didn't do anything just now.
Okay, so
let's go back to rook d8 for one move. And
that I think that might be more clever. Yeah, that might be more clever.
Yeah, because actually white's bishop's bad on b7 because you can always go back to b8 at the right moment, right?
Exactly.
To tag it.
Mm-hmm.
And also I think the first line we tried here was not so bad for black. Let's see, it was bishop e3, takes, and here I played bishop a2, which is a mistake, but I also then put in rook b8, and rook b8 is pretty nice.
Okay, but I want to do simple things after this rook a d8. I'm going to play rook takes, king g2.
Yeah, you may. Rook takes, d file for me, king g2.
So now we're saying he has to block his dirty
the
b5.
Tricks, huh? Yeah, you just want to block the tricks.
No, but go ahead, put it on b6.
All right.
And then I still have to come up with a cool idea here after bishop b6, though.
Right, because still, if you play bishop e3, I go back to taking in rook d2 or taking in rook b8. Those work again, so you haven't developed yet.
One weird bummer is that rook d1 is actually not a thing. It's just like bishop f4 then.
Well, I can trade and take a2, and maybe it's enough to draw for black.
Okay, fair, yeah.
So it may not be amazing, but I might do it anyway. I'm not proud here,
Yeah.
No big claims. No big claims from me.
It's true. My bishop. Yeah. If White's gonna pull off an advantage here, he has to find something special, and it's not so easy to find the Mr. Special.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, let's just say that black has full compensation for the pawn. I think something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We've got a suggestion that maybe at some point black might have a theme of c6 to leave the bishop on b7 awkward, but I think bishop a6 is more or less fine because you spend a move on c6, white spends a move on bishop a6. It sort of comes around and covers the main squares anyway.
I know. I think it's definitely an idea, David, because if it's if I achieve c6 and then rook d1, then I'm threatening bishop d5, and then I might have a little party on my hands.
Oh, true, true, true. True. So if black gets another move, yeah, maybe there is an element there where we can get rook d1 and bishop check before white's covering all that. Yeah.
Ooh, I have a basic question, David.
Mm-hmm.
Is this 90 plus 30, or is there a second time control?
Oh, I don't know. I do know they're playing 2 games a day for the next 4 days, only 1 game today. So I have a feeling it's 90 plus 30. Mm-hmm. Also, I have a feeling like somehow Magnus had some sway with the organizers, and he would probably prefer 90 plus 30 than something even slower.
Wait. But you're talking about the Fisher random thing.
Yeah, but the whole thing is somehow linked to Magnus.
No, I'm talking about Kostya's game, buddy. I'm talking about Kostya.
Once Magnus has got his fingers in stuff, he often is telling them how to do their stuff.
Wait, but I'm confused. We're talking about 2 different events. I'm talking
with the
about
same organizer, right? And with the same schedule for the rounds. They're played at the same time.
Oh, I see.
So even though they're in separate events, if Magnus wanted to play 90 plus 30, that might be all it takes for Kostya to be playing 90 plus 30. And every other dog in town.
In any case, I want to say this. The good news for Kostya is he's got 10 minutes on this clown, and he is really tanking here. And there's nothing really wrong. Maybe there is, but I don't necessarily see anything wrong with bishop e3, for an example.
Okay, so alternate move that we haven't yet really talked about. Jesse's alluded to it. Bishop e3, defending the d-pawn. And Jesse says, is there anything wrong with it? Well, let's say Kostya plays e4.
But if you play e4, your bishop on b6 just died.
I know. And went to heaven.
So I think if I was gonna worry about bishop e3, it would be knight f5.
For sure. I'm just looking at this move first. e4.
God, that's a bad move.
Uh-huh.
But David, you just killed your knight on c6 and your bishop on b6.
I know.
Why would you do it to yourself, Mouse? All right, knight d2.
f5.
Yeah.
If I were to explain it, Jesse, I would say the knights on c2 and d2 are not clearly better than the pieces of mine that you said were just bad. It's the difference between an open position and a closed position. If I keep the position more closed, all the minor pieces are a little bit worse. And my intention is to play g5 and f4.
Well, we knew that, buddy. We knew that.
All right, bishop e3 has been played.
Bishop e3 has been played. Okay. I think for Kostya's... Well, by the way, I really hope he doesn't play e4. And he thought for actually, it's not showing on mine, but he must have thought for a really long time. Yeah, he thought for 18 minutes on that move.
Mm-hmm.
So I think e4 is a terrible move. After which, white's not winning or anything, but white's definitely better. Also, David, if he really wanted to be Tauschmaschine on e4, he could play knight e5, and that's an equal position too. Maybe white's better even in that position. That's a full bomberito if you for that line too.
Knight takes, pawn takes.
Yeah.
But I don't have to trade queens now, right? Maybe queen b5.
Your pawn on e4 is hanging.
Mm-hmm. But I'm attacking e5 and b2.
Okay. I now, by the way, I don't like knight e5, but I'm trying to put myself in this man's soul.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I mean, we didn't look at bishop e3 long enough for me to say for sure he's going to play knight takes e5. But my instinct was that knight takes e5 was going to be simpler than bishop e3, and that therefore white was going to play knight takes e5.
Okay, let me just try to suggest something here. So bishop e3, if I was white, The move that would concern, the variation that would concern me would be knight f5.
Sure.
Knight e5. Maybe I could do other things, but I wanted to check this first. Knight takes. Pawn takes. Okay. Knight takes e3.
Queen d7.
Knight takes e. We could do queen d7 too. So queen d7, bishop d7, knight e3. We're gonna call this equal to, right?
Well, I know one thing, it's equal.
It's equal. All right, so bishop e3 is a very, simple move. David wants to go positional harikiri with e4, and maybe that's what Kostya will do, even if it's like the nasty.
Yeah. How about rook a to d8? Is that a move?
Don't I just still play knight e5?
Yeah, so I go rook a d8. You give me the knight e5 anyway. I take it. You take it. My queen comes out.
Okay, yeah, maybe.
b5.
You love your b5 thing.
Yeah. Now you tuck your lady in on like c1 or b1, right?
Yeah.
Mine's got the fresh open ocean air. Yours is like in a little claustrophobic closet.
I am touching your coconut on b7.
I know. You're all about the coconuts.
But yeah, okay. I mean, that's the most plausible line so far I've seen for black is rook a d8, honestly. But honestly, there even if I'm afraid of that line, David, I could just go de like a normal person.
Right. I trade on d1.
And then you could take on a2 or something.
I'm just trying to make a tiny little imbalance, an end game that's not necessarily good, but where I can play.
Now, one thing that we would hope, actually, is that Kostya used this time, this 18 minutes that was gifted him, just to know what the hell he was going to do on bishop e3. Because it would be nice to maintain the pressure on the clock with this guy.
Yeah.
Because I do think we're going to get, even though the position is very equalish, we're going to get some interesting stuff. He comes up with a move I wasn't pondering, and that's bishop f5.
Oh, holding that tension. So white can't take on e5 in any way, presumably because of a queen trade and bishop c2.
Okay, so first question is black threatening anything? Like, is bishop c2 a threat? My instinct is no. Well, no. Or at least that it's not that bishop c2 isn't anything special.
No, I think what black's wanting to do is play rook a d8, and just rook fe8, and eventually we'll be threatening something.
Okay, eventually, yeah. Well, maybe that was interesting.
Oh, white had an answer quickly. Rook to c1.
Makes a lot of sense.
Groveling, don't stop.
No. Rook c1 makes a lot of sense. It's just you're developing your coconut, and if Kostya wants to like give him an isolated pawn, he has to open the c file.
Sure. It makes plenty of sense. Just a little bit lame.
What did you want the guy to do?
I don't know. It looks like a great move. I just don't play moves like that. Maybe it's good enough for him. It wouldn't be good enough for me.
So at this point, well, wait a second. Rook a8 still a thing.
Right. Yeah.
Viral Stigma wanted queen e2 instead.
But I mean, queen e2, rook a8, you're also not threatening to take on e5 because of bishop d3.
Okay, so let's figure this out. So
Rook
c1
d8 quickly. Let's go.
Let's go. Okay. Well, maybe Kostya's got a little something here.
The position after rook a8 is live.
Okay, maybe rook c1 was terrible. I don't know. Maybe that was terrible. Huh?
I've got a great idea for Kostya too. Oh, the rook c1 might not be that good, Jesse, because look at this idea. Queen e2, rook fe8, rook fd1, queen e6. And yeah, if that queen lands on a2, looks not so
Well,
good.
also, David, I think queen e2, you could play queen e6 directly.
You could also do it without the rook e8. Yep.
So that's why I think, like, I'm concerned about White's position that queen e2 is not a wonderful life.
Oh yeah, even queen e6 right away. Yeah, it's more powerful than I realized.
Yeah, so this is a wild position, especially since, like, if it were Kostya's move, I think the best move probably is queen e6, but yeah. It's not like, it's just more like White can't do anything is the bigger problemito with Casito. Huh.
There's a chance that if it were Kostya's move, he could also take on c2 and d4 already, Jesse. So I'm going to play like king g1 to pass, even though it hangs h3. But I'm just trying to play a move that I don't think will change things too much.
Let me play a simpler, sadder move for him. Okay.
What do you want
Queen
to do?
e1.
Queen e1? Well, that changes things because now we're not like necessarily trading queens on d4. So now you're saying that if I take everything, I hang the knight on e7, right?
Well, also I might have a rook d2, depending on how things go. However, David, now I could grow sympathetic to e4 after, say, bishop d3 and then e4.
Mm-hmm.
So at the minimum, I think we have to say that bishop f5 maybe was a very strong move, and that rook c1 was arguably impulsive because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
And not only that, but it moved away from a2. It moved away from a2, and Black's about to smack that thing with queen e6.
Yeah. This position with the bishop on d3 and e4 is definitely interesting. But actually, let's play the simpler move against queen e1 again. I'm going to take on c2.
Yeah.
Rook c2, ed4. Do you trade immediately, or... I mean, do you put the pawn, or do you trade some minors?
Let's say I play knight takes. I just want to see this one.
Okay, knight takes. Knight takes.
Wait. Can I play... Okay, so knight takes. Can I play rook d2?
I sure hope not. But maybe.
Now, let me just say, if like bishop takes, at the minimum, then you could trade some coconuts and play c6.
Right. This was basically my idea. And that, when I was saying that, you know, if white does nothing, maybe black is ready to take on c2 and d4, it was basically to look at this position and say, yeah, maybe that d-pawn's kind of vulnerable, right? I mean, if black attacks it, the bishop can't defend it, so white has to always be ready to play d5 somehow. But in this simplified position, there's some chances for black, to me.
Yeah. Also, David, my rook d2 thing isn't going to save it either.
I doubt it. Yeah.
D5, yeah.
What did you find there?
Wait. So just knight E5. Queen. Okay, wait. Queen E2 was played like a chump, and then Queen E6 played quickly.
Wow.
Kostya's doing all right here, I think.
Oh, our boy. He knows what he's up to, Jesse. He knows what he's doing. And this move not only threatens Queen A2, but it may threaten taking on D4 because of the undefended queen on E2. And I did wonder to myself if I was somehow blundering G4 in these situations, and the bishop's got lots of choices, from dropping back to G6 or H7 to trading on C2. So many things the bishop can do. Oh. What did you do last night, Jesse? Go to bed at 8 o'clock?
um, went to bed at 9. I had the kids. I have the kids again tonight. Yeah.
Yeah. So just normal stuff.
Yeah.
I went out on the town, Jesse.
Holy shit.
Yeah.
Where
Yeah, I found out about this place. It's kind of like a chess club, but for rap.
Oh.
So I found out about this place where people gather. I didn't know what to expect, you know? Like, I just met somebody on the street. He's like, yeah, come down to this thing, you know? Like, it's great. You know, it's a hip-hop place. So I went down there, not really knowing what to expect. I'd been told that there's sort of a competition every week where you write 2 verses about a topic that's given to everybody in advance. And then you bring your verses. So yesterday I managed to write these verses, but I didn't have any time to memorize them, right? So I just wrote them yesterday. So I didn't memorize them, but I went down to the place, and when I walked in, they just had like they had a DJ, and they had like great music going, and there were 3 or 4 people up on the stage, and they were just freestyling and passing the mic around to each other, just like taking turns, just coming up with stuff, you know? And they went for hours, dude. They were unbelievable. Like, just making stuff up on the fly. They're like better than the stuff that gets published or that you would like hear on the radio. I just could not believe how good they were. And it was super welcoming, you know, like I walk in like whatever, the 500 who's just learned the rules and doesn't know anything, and they're like, hey, like, how's it going? You want to come up and try, you know? Like, you know, if somebody walked into a chess club and I used to be like, yeah, you want to play a game, you know, and I would play a game with them. It was a very, very cool scene. Everybody was like very welcoming and respectful and stuff. I hadn't seen anything like that before.
Cool. Yeah, I think this is bad news for Mr. White here, dude. Bad news.
Yes.
So that means that tomorrow, that this was the kind of like an evening round, and then tomorrow they got two in a row.
Right. For him, this is Thursday night, and he's going to play 2 games Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday.
Oh, White needs a hell of a drug here, man.
Yeah. You don't think A3 is going to cut it?
What's interesting actually about this is that, okay, so do tank, I'm going to try to describe this as a psychological thing, because I feel like I've been in this, I've seen this, been around the block a couple times, right? So from White's perspective, the way it goes down is you tank for EVs on bishop E3. You spend a lot of energy on it, and then you're kind of surprised by bishop F5. That's not what you were thinking about.
Yeah.
And then you just don't have the energy. So you make this impulsive move, rook C1. Now, maybe you're in trouble anyway, but as it turns out, rook C1 makes everything worse.
So much.
So much worse. So like maybe he is worse after bishop F5, but after rook C1, it's going to get a lot worse.
It's going to get a lot worse before it gets a little better.
That's right. All right, B3, the sad move was played. And now the simple move for Kostya is now just ED with a very tangible, long-lasting.
Yeah. ED, obviously good. if you're greedy and you see that c3 pawn, you might look at knight d5 here as well.
Mm-hmm.
Can't go too badly for black, I don't think.
Yeah, no, he's got multiple moves. Even the sad bishop c2 is probably fine.
With a sad bishop c2 just like wins a pawn. Oh no, white plays queen c2, huh?
Yeah, but you know, you give him the isolani, you play c6, and you say,
Right. So first of all, folks, after bishop c2, white's got to take with the queen to get off the e-file. Otherwise, they're just losing their stuff. So queen c2, you get to hang onto this miserable coconut for a while longer. ed4. Now that's going to be the isolated guy. I think maybe take with the c-pawn because it's bad enough. Why trade minor pieces? And... but then black gets you with knight b4 as well, right? And they still get the c6 setup if they want. And white's just bad.
Mm-hmm.
Truly sad.
Really bad and sad.
Yeah.
I'm going to get some drink. I'll be right back.
Go for it. Nope. That clicking sound was not on Kostya's board. It was on Arjun's board. It's funny, they played like 20 moves of a game on Arjun's board, and then they took all 20 moves back and played a completely different game out on that board. So I think they just had the wrong board or something somehow for an hour. What MCs did I grow up on? I think like the first stuff I listened to was probably like Snoop and Dre and Tupac. And then maybe Eminem. Oh, sorry. I forget to mention. when I was in middle school and going to dances, there's all kinds of stuff, and I didn't necessarily know what all of it was, but I think I'm about the same age as Criss Cross, Who Will Make You Jump. So that was like a big song at the dances when I was a kid. As well as some other like, turned up dancing songs or jumping songs like Insane in the Membrane and so forth. Yeah, so it was just one flurry of moves, W. Reynolds, and it should be calm again, one move every 10 or 20 minutes. Hey Rogues, there was no chess at the club, and I did not perform my verses. I was a little bit intimidated by how good everybody was. But really the problem was I hadn't memorized my verses because I just wrote them that day. And basically you have to sign up to perform your verses because there's like multiple parts of the evening. First there was the sort of freestyle cipher, or at least I interpreted it to be a freestyle cipher. Maybe people were using pieces of things they've written before in that phase. I don't know. I didn't ask anybody. There weren't rules posted on the wall. So there's sort of like the cipher and then the competition, which is where everybody recites what they wrote on the topic. And I just didn't remember my thing at all, so I didn't sign up for the competition. And then the people went up and they had their text with them because they'd also just written it, I guess, which makes sense because it's a new one every week. So now I know that in a future week, I could bring my text and sign up anyway and perform it. Then I was really regretful. I was like, oh, now I want to like perform it now that I know I could go up with like a paper. But some people came in and they're like, no, you're too late. You're not registered. So, I didn't want to mess with anything, but I wasn't terrified. I mean, I was terrified, but being terrified doesn't prevent me from wanting to try. I'm willing to embarrass myself. Very willing. There was no point going up if I just didn't know the verse, right? And I didn't know that I could bring it up with me. So unfortunately, I didn't sign up. I didn't get to perform my verse yet. So maybe sometime today, my partner will let me do it for her, so I can see how it would have gone.
You can do it for us right now, buddy. What are you talking about? Let's go. Come on, son.
Oh, I didn't know. Oh, Jesse's back with an apple. I didn't know you would want to hear that, Jesse.
Oh yeah, we always want to hear your raps, bro.
Okay. And so, I did something that's much more scary for me than performing my verse, which I'm moderately comfortable doing. They actually urged me to come up and like try just 4 bars in their cipher, where they were rotating around the mics. And, I've got a fair experience like doing writtens. I was about to say playing writtens, like it's a variant of chess or something. Like I've got some experience writing things and then, reciting what I've written. But I have no experience freestyling. And I was just like, whatever. And I went up there and I tried, which was terrible. But I tried, and they were very polite and gave me props for trying. So,
were you the oldest dude there?
No, I think there was one dude who was older than me who came out at some point. Yeah, but I mean, I was pretty old.
Yeah.
For the scene, I think. It's from like 9 p.m. until 1 a.m. So I don't think there were a lot of other parents there. Actually, there was one parent. I didn't realize that this girl who looked like maybe college age. She won the competition for the written bars, and then I realized that the person who was accompanying her at some point when she was like giving her victory speech or whatever, I realized the person accompanying her wasn't her friend who was there to encourage her. It was her mom. So there was one other parent there. The winner's mom was there with her. It had some things in common with the movie 8 Mile, Benedict. It did not have as big a crowd as in 8 Mile, and the people did not insult each other. The cipher's more collaborative. Like they would all sort of like boost each other up and like play off something the other person said. And there was one guy at the end of the night during the second cipher who started trying to battle people. And he's like, I could hit a home run with my baseball bat. You could never hit a ball with your stupid hat, or whatever, to some guy. And the organizer just came in and like quashed it immediately.
Oh,
just
man,
some lines about like, no, we're not here to battle. Like, we got to be nice, we're here to respect each other.
That's a Berkeley rap scene, dude. This is terrible.
No, the scene was amazing, Jesse. The other thing I would say as far as like the comparison to the movie 8 Mile is like, I think for the movie 8 Mile, they wrote out all those verses in advance, right? For those battles. But these guys were really just going off the top, I think, and they were really like far superior to what I realized was even possible. They were really, really good. And then, and there was another segment where some of the better people there performed some songs of theirs that weren't part of the cipher or the freestyling or the specific competition. So they had like a few people who had spots like come in and do like a featured, couple songs, some singles of theirs that they'd released. Kind of like when I went to like an open mic in Paris and they've got, everybody can read their poem or their spoken word or whatever. But they'd one, invited poet who did like, 10 pieces for one phase of that. Okay, B3, Kostya thinking. I guess I'll go get my notepad with my little scribbles and I'll come back.
Okay. We got a sensei question here.
Jesse wants to hear it too. You want to come listen?
Oh, here he's coming. He's coming back with. I hear him in the background. He's coming back.
Hype woman. You can be in the background like, yeah, yeah.
What is this?
All right.
Sounds like your will not make any difference.
No, no lunch. Jesse, I asked Chloe to be my hype woman, you know, to stand in the back and like repeat the rhyming words for me. And she said no. She said no.
All right, Baus, we're ready for it.
All right. So the topic for the week was fascism.
That's a very Berkeley topic. Yep.
Yeah. And everybody there was against it, by the way, just in terms of what the scene was like. Yeah. Yeah, I love that too, Carl, just getting like a view into different worlds and communities and cultures and stuff. All right, if I put this beat on, tell me if you hear it.
I don't hear it yet.
Jesse doesn't hear it.
I think there's a way you could. Oh, maybe they hear it.
Okay, chat does hear it.
Okay. Don't worry about me then.
Don't worry about you?
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, I will turn my mic off and I'll listen through.
Okay. What is this that I see around me? Can you give it a name to help to ground me? I'll tell you what I see and you tell me what it is. I want to understand the system in which I live. People disappearing off the streets for their opinions. All fun in this cut, lest you swear to be a minion. Rule of law been a joke, now they openly scoffing as a scofflaw sorts folks into jobs or to coffins. Competence is out, what's sought is loyalty. Those that get in it, those that bow to royalty. We aim to remake the greatness of a past day, though specifically when we've yet to situate. Maybe sometime before the bloodlines mixed, every white man a master, every other 86. There's an enemy among us and we're trying to decide which sub-tribe best inspires genocide. Will we start with the woke terrorists or cartels? Eventually all libs gotta go as well. So that's the first verse. We deport the best, give medals to the worst. Exhort everyone to put the devil first. If you care for others, that's an act of treason, cause love is the most dangerous of feelings. What happens in other lands is not our concern. We take care of our own here at home first. After staged assassinations, find an ass leading the nation. Machiavellian machinations make Orwellian situations. If black ICE agents kidnap white parents for whispering truth to power in their mansion basements, is that white supremacy or another type of weaponry? Let it be a dream or be revolution's the enemy. Hillbillies mobbing, belonging's ecstasy, but the elegy we're writing is writ for empathy. And you'll die of asphyxiation holding your breath for reparations. Okay, and I wrote a third one too. Fierce salutes young recruits, none of them astute, cause there's no critical race or critical thought in our schools. Only education, patriotic indoctrination, as it gets harder and harder to find a doctor in the nation. But while public health and all else gets defunded, an army of pundits smarmy talk some dumb shit. Double weak suits, suited to double speak, leading the flock to chant call the weak, call the weak. Sheep, mocking sheep, mocking sheep, mocking sheep. And at the end of the line, a lot of real moms are weak. I see a lot of optimists taking cold showers and slavish little cowards just bathing in power for kissing the ring of the demagogue in charge. Every ism has its problems, but none of them this large. Lack of wisdom, fast rhythms, crass visions, mass prisons. Wait, hold up. Is this fascism? Wait, hold up. Is this fascism? All right, that was it.
That was great, dude. That was great, dude.
All right, Kostya's moved.
David, do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, Kostya's moved. David, do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you. I hear us twice.
Yeah, I hear us twice.
Yeah, I hear you.
Sorry about
Yeah,
that. I had to switch the sound.
Yeah, it's okay.
That was beautiful, bud. That was great.
Yeah. Oh,
I
thank
like
you.
the beat too.
Yeah, apparently there was also an
Now,
assigned.
95 was the fancy move, right?
Yeah. Apparently there was also an assigned beat, but I couldn't find it because they don't have like a really clear website, which is also why I didn't know any of the rules.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
So I just picked my own beat, which was fine.
Slip the speaker. Okay. Say something, David.
Hey, Jesse.
Oh, no.
Yeah. Thanks, Carl. The second verse is where I put like the scraps that I wasn't going to use. Like in theory, the competition was for 2 verses, and I was going to use the first and the third verses. And the second verse, I would say, is a bunch of random is some scraps. You know, it doesn't really. It's not at the level of the other two, but I left it. Well, I've got all 3 because if I make the third verse better, it'll work well as a 1, 2, 3 at some point. Oh, you're a musician, Graham? How kind of you to use the word fellow musician. I mean, I'm not really a musician. I'm just somebody with an interest in music. So, knight d5. Kostya plays the angry move, the maximalist move.
Exactly. Good description. Yeah, I'm not. I felt more comfortable with the other moves because this one, I'm not completely sold on this one yet.
Yeah, this is round 1, Marcus, so we don't have much yet. I did like, Jesse, that I figured out this. I came up with these 2 kind of cute word plays for me. One is indoctrination and doctor in the nation, right?
Yeah, that was cool.
And the other one was assassination and ass leading the nation. So I liked I liked the decomposition of those 2 words.
Well, David, let me ask you first question
Yeah.
about this position. Let's say I play Queen D2.
Queen D2.
Very
Basic.
simple. How do you get...
Mr. Basic.
It's kind of a weird move, but like
All
if
right.
you were to let me play another one, I'd probably play Rook E1 or something.
Let's say then I trade a bitch
Which one do you want to trade?
on C2. Sorry.
Okay, so Bishop C2, Rook C2.
Yeah, Rook C2. Now I put my knight's best hoof forward. Knight C3.
That's best hoof forward, dude.
Yeah.
Knight C3 might be a good move, dude. Yeah. That's his best hoof for sure.
Yeah. Clop, 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 clop.
Okay, at the minimum, that's a clear advantage for black. Okay, so knight D5. And let's try the other obvious one then, Bishop D2 instead of Queen D2.
Yeah. Okay. So this is the one that gets out of the E-file problems for white, right? Because now if black takes, white gets to go. And what does Kostya want to do about this? This is what I was unsure about.
You know,
myself.
actually, David, just take on C2 and take on D4 and say you're a pawn up. You don't have to be genius.
Mm-hmm. Okay, but what if... Oh, yeah. Benedict was saying maybe knight takes C3 as well, but no, not here. Okay, so you're saying we don't have to be a genius. We trade, we take. White gets to take on E6, which we're not pumped about. FE6. C takes D4 or knight takes D4?
I think I got to do knight takes D4 to open up the bishop on the knight, so I'll be threatening C7 if you take everything.
Uh-huh. But then black can mob with just the knights, right? Bishop takes D4.
Pawn takes.
Pawn takes, knight d4.
You're mobbing me with a knight.
Yeah.
Okay, that's probably fair. So that's a good variation. So bishop d2, bishop c2, rook c2, e d4, queen e6, fe.
Maybe cd, Jesse.
Okay, we can try cd.
Because now if knight d4, you can trade on d4, trade on d5, take on c7. Rook takes f3, pow, says Benedict. That's what we were looking for.
It's not that simple, though, because knight d4, bishop d5.
Mm-hmm. Rook takes d5, Jesse. Woo! Benedict got it. Got it done.
That was pretty good. That was pretty good.
Whew!
d4.
Hot. Benedict, did you calculate rook c3 as well? Yeah, the knight was still covering c3. There was nothing. Boom!
Okay. Before you get too hot in your panties here, how about rook takes c6? After rook takes f3.
You don't want me to get hot?
You're already hot from that rant. That rap, buddy. I got to slow you down a little bit.
All right, we'll go rook d3. Dropping e6. Jesus. Dropping e6 like a stop and frisk.
Oh, wait, rook d3. I mean, I don't want to hang my coconut.
I'm an optimist, but not with this. I can't win an endgame with 3 isolated pawns. Ay.
I thought your rook d3 thing you're definitely still better. Wait, David, don't give up yet. So rook takes f3, rook takes c6.
Yeah.
Rook d3.
Oh yeah, you can't take on e6.
Yeah, you're still fine.
This was my point, was to force rook c2, and then I got confused. Okay, so winning is strong, but black is up a pawn.
In that position, white could dream about holding it, though, because of the 2 bishops.
Yeah.
So it would be nice if black had more than that.
Yeah, it would be. But I'll play c6 because the d-pawn's already dead. You know, like when they walk away from an explosion in a movie. So I just play c6. Cover the light squares. And, you know, it's like a 45% chance that black's winning this endgame.
Yeah, it looks very promising. David, I'm going to have to go in a little, maybe a half an hour or so, but I wanted to, could we do a little dojo stuff?
Okay.
While we're waiting for this chump to figure his life out. So there's something that I want to show you. It's a new dojo thing. It's very interesting. I want to show chat too.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you could take that board, that view of the board, and go to the training program and pick out a game. Actually, do you have any game where you have marked, let's say one of your games where you marked like various positions in the game where someone's a little bit better, equal, like all that kind of stuff?
Like evaluations?
Yeah, just a game with evaluation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, pull one of those games up.
Okay. The view is going to be a little funky in this current setup here, but okay, so I got a board.
Good.
It's looking fugly on stream, but what do you...
Looking fugly. You got like something superimposed on it or something.
Exactly. It's because I like rearranged the board to have my screen capture is actually a couple different screen captures to save space around the names and the clocks.
So what you could do is you could temporarily hide like the sensei eval, and you could hide the other thing on top of it.
Yeah, I mean, I could also just go to a different
yeah, your choice.
View. Like I could just go to Dojo Simple and
oh, you got one called Dojo Simple.
Yeah. So this one here, I can just do something like this. All right, what do you want to show folks?
So I want you then to go to the time graph. Actually, why don't you tell me what game? Oh, this is Pruess against your favorite game. So I'm gonna try to look at it on mine to make sure we.
Yeah.
Window. Yeah. So go to the time thing, the time graph button.
Yeah.
And then we're going to need to scroll down and then and then you're going to have to capture it a little bit to the left. Maybe just move everything over a little. We don't need to see the game. Just move everything to the right, rather. The whole grab to the right. There you go. And then expand it to the left there. Okay. So first of all, David, you didn't write down the time. Oh, yeah, because this was played ages ago, so you don't have the time.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me just introduce this amazing thing to you and the chat. What this is, and unfortunately, it's a little bit sad for this particular game because David only.
I'll put some more in real quick, Jesse, because I think I know what you're getting at. You can start explaining it, and I'll do it.
Right, so David's going to put a couple other evaluations in here. And what this is this is a human eval graph. And what Jack, our developer, did is he superimposed it on the clock time graph, and that's one of the many things to discuss. So this is like, let's call this a beta product that I like a lot. I like the idea of it a lot. And so first I wanted to show it to David and then maybe talk through what it could become. And he's just making a couple more evals so that we'll get a more interesting graph going. Right. So actually, while he's talking, I'll say what I think it should be. I don't think it should be superimposed on the clock time graph because it's confusing. And clock time and the eval graph don't really have anything necessarily to do with one another. So here's David's beautiful clock or eval graph. Okay, so that's the first thing, David. I don't think it belongs on the clock time thing. And normally, if he had a game with clock times, it would show then the time graph as well. Right? Okay, so that's one. And the
Wait, so normally it would be... Oh, it's only one clock, huh?
No, you just pulled up a game that doesn't have you don't enter your clock times.
Okay, let's see if I've got a more recent game with clock times. But there's only one graph. It's not separate graphs, Jesse?
Well, right. So I'm thinking it should be a separate graph.
One would
and it could
think.
Yeah.
I'm going to have to go back a little bit because I analyzed a lot of games here that are not my games. Did I put in times on this game? But I don't think I've annotated this game yet. Sorry. So hang on.
Okay, you could just pull it up.
21 to 30.
You can pull up any of my games too.
Okay, this game should have... Does this game have what we need? Yeah, I just haven't entered in the clock times.
Oh, buddy.
Sorry.
If you want to see one, you can pull up any of my games.
Sure.
I've got evals plus clock times.
Yeah. Let's go to Jesse over here. Go to his games. Fishbine, Zhou Jian Qiao.
Any of them.
See, Zhou Jian Qiao. Any of them, he says. They've all got it. All right.
I didn't say they're good games. I just said
right.
This graph here.
Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
So here, on the left side is the time. On the right side is the eval. We can see the eval. Looks like you didn't put in too many eval markers along the way. Did the game end in a draw?
No, I ended up losing this game.
The final eval is only plus equal.
Yeah, but I mean...
Did you flag?
I blundered at the end.
Mm.
Okay, but here's what you can see. So first of all, it's the clock graph itself is such a beautiful thing.
Rook A3 check equal.
Okay, so first thing, David, I guess we're agreed that it should be a different graph, right?
Is it so bad to have both on here?
I mean, well, for one, you really got to figure it out. Like if you're just naively looking at it, it's really hard see what you're like. Let's say even just the time graph, it takes a little bit of the eyes getting used to it to be like, right, blue is black, white is white, and it's telling me the story of the clock. Whereas then the eval is telling me this other story. And if the stories were like really, really interconnected, then I'd be like, yeah, they should. Maybe it's interesting that they're the same graph, but otherwise it's confusing, I think. Contemplating that thing. All right, while you're contemplating, the other thing about it that is a little bit funky for me is when I've dreamed about something like this for decades, honestly. When I do my own game analysis, a lot of times I'll have like a little graph of my own that I'll do at the very end. And this thing is unsatisfying to me in that there's no gradation between like equal and slightly better.
Yeah, to me, it's always going to be a pretty unsatisfying step graph, honestly, Jesse.
Right. So for me, the cool thing would be is if I could start the game at plus 0.2 for white, right? And let's say somebody makes what I think is an inaccuracy, and then I put it like in this game, I would definitely think I was, 0.2. And actually in this game, I would say I made an inaccuracy and it was probably 0.4, and then it went back to equal. So, and it would encourage me, by the way, to make evaluations because then I would really see it through with the graph. In the same way that having the time graph really encourages me to write down the times and to enter the times because it gives this beautiful visualization of what's going on.
What if we just had the computer generate an evaluation graph?
Okay.
It would be more accurate.
Well, here's where it gets interesting. The computer, of course, is a different beast of an evaluation, right? And so what we're doing at the dojo is it's definitely training to try to give your evaluation of the position, right? So one of the things I was thinking of is if it's a separate graph, right, not a time graph, what it would then allow you to do is, okay, this is just my dream scenario. It's a separate graph, and there's a little slider between equal and a small advantage, big advantage, clear winning. And then I even want something beyond winning, like a skull, because winning is winning, and that's not necessarily easy. But if there's a skull, then we know it's over.
Skulkum.
Skulkum, that's right. Okay, so there's we're going to add a skull, and then it's a slider. So, you intuitively put it, whatever you think the white's advantage is on move one, you put it in between there as a slider.
So you want that to be in the toolbar when you're annotating the game.
Right. Exactly. And then, then afterwards, like let's say I do my human analysis and everything. Then at the end of it all, if we want to, we can then have the computer generate its version of eval graph. Which is, I think, for some people more interesting than for others. Like, to me, it's kind of interesting. To me, the human eval bar is more interesting because I can see what I thought of the game. But the computer, of course, like what it'll inevitably show are moves that you thought were natural, and it was in fact like the evaluation was jumping all up and down because neither player saw.
Right, it'll be zigzag from move to move based on possibilities that didn't even get played on the board.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Which is a little bit, I mean, some people might want that. For some people, it would be confusing.
And I think for Jack, and I don't know if he gets it, because maybe like because he's like 1700. To me, the difference between 0.2 and 0.4 it's a world. That's worlds. Whereas, for him, maybe it's just equal and slightly better.
No. Jack gets that. He's a genius, dude.
He is a genius, but he doesn't want it. He's fighting me on this a little bit.
Okay. He's a genius, and he's made like 2,000 on chess.com. That's not 1,600. He's good.
I'm just saying for some people, he might not feel my pain
Sure.
when I like it's very important for me to differentiate +0.2 to
Right.
+0.4. So for example, we were watching Kostya's game, and there was a various like every time White screwed up, he was losing. He lost like 0.3. It wasn't like it wasn't a catastrophe immediately, but he was on the slide. He was on the slide down.
Like White made their first mistake, and then it was slightly better for Black, but it took 2 or 3 more mistakes before you might say it's clearly better. So there were like entire mistakes where the evaluation stayed at slightly better.
Bishop D2 was played after 15 minutes.
Yeah. Should we go back to our broadcast?
Any thoughts, David? Any
Thoughts?
Just first impressions?
I think, like, I'm generally in favor of like a couple little toggles so people can choose their view. I think different people process visual stuff kind of differently. So the option to overlay it might work for some people. Some others might prefer a separate graph. In a certain sense, all you need is one graph if you've got enough toggles underneath, right? Like I could toggle on or off the overlay and on or off the time. And that would allow me to see either one by themselves or both. If I toggle them both on, right? Like right now there's this toggle for the evaluation. I could have the same a toggle for the time. Then you don't need more space in your user interface. Well, you need one more toggle instead of one more graph.
So then eventually we could even imagine then having a fourth bar being the computer zigzag.
Exactly. And another toggle could be computer eval.
Okay.
And again, you
to
can
me,
just click
actually,
them
the
all
most
on.
important would be, well, a couple things. And the first one's obvious, is that if we keep the things on the graphs overlaid, that when you unclick overlay evaluation, then the eval signs on the right have to go away. At the moment, they don't go away.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But more important to me is the ability to differentiate between like +2 and +4.
Sure.
0.4, that kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. Good.
Anyway, that's my 2 cents. You know, I'd rather be a chess teacher than a product manager at this point. So, all right, let's go back to Kostya's board and do a little kalkulatsk.
He's doing fine.
Right, so let's look again at this calculation of bishop takes c2, rook takes c2, and e takes d4. Queen e6, f e6. If cd4, we're doing rook f3. Yep. And if knight d4, probably doing bishop takes d4. No, he's doing great. I mean, we have to bump up his eval here on the human eval thing, right? Because he's like a full pawn to the good here. It's just
okay. I have a thought for White just to try to survive. So rook f3, bishop f3, knight d4, maybe bishop d1.
Okay, let me try to get to the appropriate variation. cd4, rook f3, bishop f3, knight d4. Bishop d1. Oh yeah, that's a nice move, son. Still, +1 for black.
Okay, so let's assume knight c2 is forced.
Yeah.
I don't know. The pawn on e6. I would put it this way. Black needs a nice plan right now.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, White might be just fine.
Just fine. That's That's a big claim. How about I just plop another thing in the middle of the board? Bishop d4.
Okay, white's going to play king g2.
Oh, wow. Benedict, again with the tactics, Jesse. Benedict says, does knight e3 work here? The idea is to trade into the pure rook endgame.
Benedict's got his computer on.
No, he doesn't. He's just better tactically than strategically.
Okay, but bishop takes
right.
e3.
Yeah, takes. I know we're going to a rook ending, but look, we're getting the absolute 7th.
It's not a rook endgame, though. It's called the bishops of opposite color endgame.
Oh, how did you take?
Well, I haven't taken it yet.
Oh, you don't take back on e3. Look at that, Benedict. Jesse's going to play something like rook d1 instead of fe3.
or maybe king g2 or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
That'll be hard to win.
That'll be hard to win, Benedict. Yeah.
But knight e3 is a nice move. I'm not saying it's not, maybe it's still the best move.
No. We don't need to play knight e3 if it gives us opposite colored bishops. Let's go back to my move now. That was a great spot, Benedict. Oh, millions of moves coming in, by the way. Oh, they're blitzing. They're blitzing something they've been looking at.
And let's just say the obvious. Kostya does not take on c2. And instead is getting this position.
He's trying to take on f2 instead.
That looks much stronger.
Jeez Louise, Kostya. He looked at all his options, Jesse. He didn't just tunnel on one variation super deep. That rook f2 looks brutal at first blush.
Okay.
So, against rook d1, for example, there's rook f2, and if bishop h6, bishop e4.
But what about rook f2, bishop e1?
What about king g1? Oh, bishop e1. Wow, then rook c2 looks like the only move?
or rook g2?
Or rook g2, knight e3?
But there you're also maybe going opposite color.
That's going opposite, right? Rook g2, knight e3. I don't want any of that. I'll go rook c2.
But rook c2, again, I have the two bishops.
Yeah, but you still have the weak d pawn. I like it. I think it's very, very good winning chances.
Do I have anything else though besides rook fd1?
Like some kind of a wild exchange sack or something, or throwing in bishop d5 is just going to lose more material. Oh, White's played something. He's played rook fd1. So I guess my other question is on rook f2, maybe king g1, setting up for bishop h6. And that, I'm not sure.
This might. I hope Kostya's figured this out, man, because yeah, it's a real little tricker right now after rook f2, and then so there's bishop e1. Your king g1 move also looks a little gnarly.
Yeah. Yeah, Carl. I think that if we at some point wanted to build a guess the evaluation tool, that would be super useful.
Oh, he might have missed rook f2, king g1. That's an easy move to miss.
Kostya's made some move. He played rook f2. Yeah, I was also, like, technically there might also be this bishop e2 move, but I think after rook e1, rook f2, it's not obvious how that helps you, right? Like king g1, and you might just be losing heavy stuff by tangling yourself up.
All right, he played rook f2. And now let's just say, what is his genius move after king g1? Maybe he does have something genius. Maybe it's just the simple rook df8.
Oh, rook df8 could be a whole thing, yeah.
Maybe, I don't know. So let's just say, first of all, if rook df8, bishop e1, then rook f8's got issues though, because I could play bishop d5 and bishop b4. And then I'm hitting some tokens.
Do I have any? No, I don't. Everybody's overworked here. Wait, I have one way to keep playing, Jesse. Bishop e4. Bishop f8. Kavutskiy. King gets out. King f8. You probably want to play rook c7 before you're doomed to passivity.
If I get rook c7, I'm not complaining. That's all I know.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. I almost wanted to play c6 before recapturing the bishop, but I can't play this endgame down a full rook.
I said like an hour ago that time was going to be a factor, and it's turning into a little factor for our Berkesh kid.
Yeah.
But King G1, it's kind of like, what else are you going to do, buddy?
So King G1, what if the rook retreats like to F7? Let's just see how this Bishop H6 plays out, right? How bad is this? Bishop H6. Do we have anything?
Okay, did he do it? He played King G1. Kostya might have missed this, dude. I don't know.
Kostya, if you missed this, I'm going to scream at you.
It's a very nice idea here, and I don't see it yet.
I mean, I got this very weird move knight b4. I'm sure it doesn't work.
Knight where?
Knight
b4.
but,
After Bishop H6.
Yeah. Chat's saying maybe immediately King G1 could be answered by Rook E2. Do you know what they've calculated against like Bishop F3, Bishop F1, those kind of moves?
No, I don't.
No. Because they're saying it like it's super obvious. And they're
also
all
just Bishop
players.
H6, I can still do Bishop. Bishop H6, maybe you're fine, because then, yeah, your rook's still there. But Bishop F1, I have no idea what their intention is.
Kostya Coast. What's up?
King G1, buddy. This is where we need that vid of him. We need the vid of the squirming in the chairs and people are losing their minds.
Yeah.
By the way, it's now we take it for granted, but I think it dramatically changes the fan experience, dude, to have that video.
Yeah.
Sure.
Totally.
I think Kostya mucked it up, man.
All right, we're gonna wipe out his extra pawn until we see what we're missing. I think the Arjun board is on the live position, and so is Kostya's. I think I've got both boards on the live positions right now. Arjun is up an exchange for a pawn. So doing pretty good. Are we watching the wrong board? I don't know.
We actually have a sensei question you could help me answer that has to do with evals. So he says, I'd love to read how different rated players assess a particular position. Our own version, so a dojo version of the amateur's mind, or think like a super GM. But rather than posting a position and getting comments from people, we message a few representatives at the 1,000, 1,500, 2,000, and 2,500 ELO ratings for a short analysis of the position, then post the responses. Now, my intuitive reaction to that is that's great, but this person doesn't realize how many tech projects we have going on at the dojo at the moment, man. Mm-hmm. We have so many things going on. Any thoughts on that, David?
guess the idea is to do another book project, basically, right?
Oh, what you think what this guy's saying is to do a book project?
Pretty much, no?
I don't think he meant it to be that intense, dude, but it would essentially turn into some kind, it could be turned into a book of what he's saying, sure.
He wants to have it be
now,
like
once
a
you said
live
book,
Discord.
I'm like, oh God.
Yeah, to me it sounds like a book project.
I'll write that in our response. Let's say David says it sounds like a book project.
And he wants the next dojo book to be about sparring.
Sounds like a book project. And the word, and we are traumatized still traumatized by the work it took to get our first book out. All right, good, a good question. Now, are you serious? You want to do a sparring book?
Yeah.
Now, first of all, before we talk about the ideas behind a sparring book, are you put off at all based on our past experience about just the process of doing a book?
The trauma, the process.
The trauma. I mean, I don't want to call it trauma. Is a little
mildly.
I mean, so much work, dude. So much work.
Yeah. Yeah.
The
But
good news is,
I just think it's such an original thing. It's an important pillar of our training program. It's something that's not really, I think it's one of the greatest training techniques, and it's not widely used. So to me, that's just logical, right? Our first book was on the first pillar of the training program, and the second one would be on the second pillar. And there you go.
I would say sparring is a part of a pillar.
Okay.
But, okay.
I mean, to me, it's kind of a pillar. It's like a big chunk of how we learn both openings, middle games, and end games, right?
I'm just saying, if you think of it as three pillars of the dojo, then the sparring is about the plus minus equal thing, and it's just a part of that. But anyways, it's interesting. I feel like in order to do the book, David, for me, I feel like we have yet been successful at getting large numbers of people to spar. Right? And that we would need that first. We need to be a success before we start. Like, we've definitely been a success in getting to people to annotate their games.
Right.
I feel for sure. But the sparring, we've had so much grief, especially, let's call it doing the match.com on the calendar of getting people to play one another. Right.
Yeah. But that would be part of the book project as well, would be just sort of, going through, making it happen.
No, David, this is really a bummer. It's like, are we just down to absolute equality now? It looks like black has nothing now.
Yeah, I don't see anything. Viral Stigma is... Leviathan is saying they were just talking about starting a Discord channel. But basically, Leviathan, as Michael and I are recognizing, I think, the person's asking us to recreate Think Like a Super GM by Adams, but in a Discord channel. Like a long, long, long Discord channel thread of a book instead of a book. But I mean, I find it easier to read a book in book format. Some people maybe find it easy to read Discord channels. But the content is a book. Very similar to Think Like a Super GM. Can we play Rook F7 to try and claim we got the better ending? Well, we can play Rook F7 to try and claim we've got the better ending or to save our rook. Either way, Rook F7 is our first candidate move. And then the part about claiming we've got the better ending, that part is more open to interpretation because it looks pretty equal.
All right, let's give Rook F7 a try, boss.
Okay.
Rook F7, let's play Bishop H6.
Yeah.
GH. Rook D3.
Yeah.
Oh. And now I wanted to try. This is hard to believe. No, it's just nothing. It's nothing.
I think you're looking at the same thing I looked at before, knight b4, right?
Yeah, I was trying to make something work.
Knight b4, they played rook d2. Now you're thinking about like e5 and c6, and you're realizing that either way it's equal.
Or even potentially worse for us because he's
Or
got a
even
bishop
potentially
and we got
worse
a knight.
if this bishop gets to talk. What do I think about going opposite colored bishops for an exchange down position with the bishop check and the king probably just...
The bummer here is the knight on d5 doesn't have any entrance.
And then c6. And then rook e1. Tagging the pawn on e6 if bishop f5, g4. And to me, it looks like an immediate disaster. I had considered this.
One of the things to say about that, though, is if you're Kostya and you realize you've really mucked it up, you're going to start looking at weird stuff like this.
I do for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh, Kostya, buddy.
Yeah, you have rook f8 here, Benedict, if you want, and then white plays rook f1, right? And you just have to back off because a rook trade is nearly fatal, right? So you move your rook away, and then I bring the other rook to the e-file. And you haven't lost yet, but I mean, black's not looking healthy, right? The best case scenario is you try to hold like a fortress.
Okay, he moved. He played rook f5. And our take on this move was that bishop h6 should be fine for white. Did we miss anything?
Okay. Yeah, I got an idea for Kostya here, Jesse.
Okay, bishop h6.
Bishop h6, bishop e2.
All right. So, rook e1.
Right. So
Or
you got it.
d2. I don't know. Let's put it on d2. I don't know.
At first, you seem to have two candidates, right? But you got to start by being a little bit careful. So if you go rook d2, you take away the bishop's retreat square from h6.
Okay, but before I cry, what are you going to go with? We're going to go with the bishop. b5? Maybe.
I guess. Maybe g4 will save you from any problems.
I think I'm better. I have the two bishops. I'll play g4 and bishop g5, and the milk's gone bad.
Okay. So I'll play the same thing I was going to play against rook e1 then. I'll play bishop f3, trying to
I'm still playing g4.
Yeah, you still play g4. I'm not sure why my rook's on f5, but I go back to f7 now.
I think he might have missed just this simple thing because, all right, we got to move. Bishop h6 was played. But I think in that position, David, after bishop g5, it's white who's... And, you know, maybe his opponent will be like the other guy and make a draw with Kostya because he's terrified. By the way, I don't see any problem with rook e1 either, right? There's no problem with rook e1, right?
No, it's going to be similar. I was going to play bishop f3 and try and trade the light squared bishops.
You could, I don't know why you would do it, but you could throw in g4 too. He plays rook e1, bishop f3 happens, and g4 is just a very simple and strong move.
What?
Chihuahua.
Jesse, Jalp is saying from Discord chat, it seems the game the senseis are streaming is another person's game, and Kostya already won a different game with the black pieces.
You got us on the wrong game here, buddy. But you sent me the link, and it says Kostya and Alexander Berkesh.
It does say Kostya, yeah.
Oh, man, if we've been going over the wrong game, bows.
What?
It says it right there. I don't know.
Does that mean that there's somebody from the dojo on site in Grenke taking pictures of Kostya at the board? Are you allowed to have a phone in the room while they're playing? How would someone have a
Benedict's
picture?
saying it's just a joke. He's saying it's just a joke. Let's presume, David, that this is the game because it's got his picture. I know that picture.
Because it's got his picture. I mean, I'm entertaining the possibility, Jesse, because they definitely had Arjun's game wrong. They played out 20 moves of Arjun Aragaisi's game for over an hour.
Uh-huh.
Maybe even 2 hours. And then at some point, they retracted all 20 moves and started over from move 1 and played an entirely different game. No relation.
Okay, but check it out. So Benedict is saying on Lichess it's the same. However, it could be the tournament organizer's problem streaming the wrong game.
Right. If they've got the wrong board linked, then it's going to show up with the wrong names on every site.
And this dude played Bishop D2, which that's a soft move. I think G4 is like you're playing for all the coconuts then. But Bishop D2, you're fine. Nothing wrong with your position.
Well, but this does give Kostya that light squared bishop trade with the knight on d5. It's a huge difference. Huge difference. Compared to g4, bishop g5, and then bishop f1 from white, right, Jesse?
I'm with you. I'm with you. I'm just saying this is...
I think that was the difference
Still-
between like plus 0.3 and minus 0.1 or something like that.
No, this is still totally equal.
Okay.
Because we can, after King G2, we're still playing G4. White still has the nuts, pushing forward on the king side.
All right, look at that, Jesse. You just joined the Sensei eval bar because I put minus 0.1 and you verbally told me 0. So now we're averaged out at minus 0.05.
I'm about to get invaded by children, by the way.
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh yeah, it's an invasion time. It's imminent.
Well, this was fun, dude. Hopefully I can do more of this.
Yeah.
By the way, I kind of got discouraged at the last tournament because for me to do the streaming, there has to be something at stake, right? And then kind of like you said, once he lost early on, it was like, well, it went to crap, went to crap.
Jesse, you should have the patience for the long grind. I mean, Kostya's not going to become a GM on this trip.
Well, no, but I want to see him fight for the title, dude. Yeah, I want to see him fight for the norm. I mean, yeah.
You want to see him fight for a norm?
Yeah, fight for the norm. Okay, I should get out of here, but that's fun. I'll try to be back in the coming days.
All right, I just got sent a note here. Yeah, Jesse, so tomorrow Kostya's game is supposed to start at 7 a.m. my time. Somebody is... Yeah, I mean, I am seeing a picture with his pawn on e7. It looks like a bishop takes b5 Sicilian.
Oh, no.
Potentially. This game felt kind of like Kostya. I mean, I really believed that it was him playing. Up until this blunder felt a little weird.
He has been playing. I was mildly surprised about e5. I'm sure he can play e5, but I was mildly surprised.
He played it once at the last tournament. So
yeah, I know.
But yeah, if we can't get Kostya's board, folks, then I don't know how much we're gonna stream this tournament because we don't know if it's Kostya's board or Kosak's board. Apparently, there's another player named Kosak.
We did so much work on this too, man. It might not have been Kostya the whole time.
Right. Then when Kostya watches the review to sort of compare his evaluations with ours, he's gonna be like, "What the hell is going on?"
Okay, wait. I'm looking at this picture too. He is playing a dude that looks around 27. I'm gonna say so that it fits. But yeah, that's just the wrong position, boss. So yeah, I'm just gonna make it official. We have the wrong game.
I mean, from behind, over the shoulder, it looks like it could be Sutovsky's son.
Yeah, dude, it might be. Yeah, no, this is not some, unless this is like a blitz tournament from, I don't know.
Yesterday.
Yeah, I don't know.
But also, if they let a dojoer walk up to Kostya's board like this with an electrical device in their hand, what's up with their, cheat detection whatever prevention.
Did somebody say it was a dojoers?
Well, they
Oh,
posted it in
no.
Dojo. I mean, you have to imagine, like, to get a picture, you have a digital device, and the person doing it is from the dojo, so there'd be like a potential accomplice for Kostya, right? They're a fan or an ally of his.
Okay, but maybe this is the Grenke posting their own pictures on their website.
Like an official photographer for Grenke.
Maybe, I don't know.
Could be. Also, we're told that Kavutskiy is supposed to be on board 53, and it shows a 53.
Oh yeah, we're toast.
So
we got hosed. We got tricked hard, buddy.
We got hosed.
We got hosed, dude.
All effort is not lost. We got some sweet rhymes. Dude, I could have been writing new rhymes for 4 hours instead of analyzing Mr. Kostya's game. Good
Well,
Lord.
the other thing that was really weird about it, David, is you sent me that link, and then I was scrolling through the chess.com games, and I couldn't find Kostya on the chess.com games.
I found it, but it took some effort. I mean, as they're saying, board 53, that's a lot to scroll through. But if Kostya won his game, that's great to hear, folks. And honestly, this game felt like a Kostya game. It looked like he pressed nicely, and then, okay, he's blundered a pawn, but it wasn't him. And we will leave it at that, I think. I will go have lunch, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. If you want if you want to try and stream the game, Jesse, it starts at 7 a.m. my time, 10 a.m. your time tomorrow, but I can't join until 9 a.m. So you could start on it without me, or you could wait for me and we could look at some of the middle game together.
All right. Well, first we got to see if we can get an actual correct
Yeah, if
game.
we can't get his board, then it's all a moot point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, shoot.
Okay, I'm outta here.
Yeah. Okay. Cheers.
Bye.
Bye. All right, guys. There's further problems as well with tomorrow. There's further problems with tomorrow because actually not mute myself. I'm trying to get rid of this frozen Zoom thing. The additional problem with tomorrow is I might have a therapist appointment, or I might just have a medical appointment that I have to take a kid to around 9 a.m. So I might not be able to do that either. Norvik says if I look up the Kostya game, I might find Kostya's game around board 38. It's not going to be easy to find board 38. Okay, so here's the top 4. 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28. The boards aren't necessarily in order either, so I'm just checking all of them. Maybe 32. Yeah, I'm not finding a Kostya game here. Thanks, Nordovik. You're seeming much more competent than me today. Tatiana Kostya won against Joachim Nemec, but Kostya might be Kostya. Let's have a look. It is Kostya's opening with bishop b5. 94, h3. Limiting that bishop, but the bishop's already out the bag. g5, insane move from Kostya instead of e6 or knight e6. Wow. Just going for it. White sacks it, gets a knight in. Hide the bishop. There goes the c pawn. And now Kostya untangles it all. Hilarious, but very, very hard to see all this coming. White tries to explode the dark squares. Super fancy, heavy-duty positional moves. Bishop d3 resigns? Doesn't quite make sense, does it? Yeah, g5 makes sense. Bishop d3 resigns makes the least sense of anything about this game. Maybe this is where their relayers gave up on their lives and realized that nothing they were doing mattered, like Jesse and I just recognized a few minutes ago. And, in 10 million years. All right, folks, I'm going to get lunch.